G'day, Bloodlords. AOS Coach here, and we are talking all things Khorne. I'm wearing my Khorne hat. I'm very proud of myself. I always make sure I wear this Khorne hat when we talk all things Blades of Khorne. Now, if you're a fan of the channel, you probably see me talking a fair bit about like the Dawnbringers Book 1 and Dawnbringers Book 2, and you're wondering, why am I talking Khorne? And it's because they haven't gotten an update. There hasn't been any special rules. There's no little minor heroes. But given that we are in the Antorian Locust Generals Handbook 2023, I thought it was a great time to let the dust settle and talk all things Skulls for the Skull God. I'm joined by Crutchammer's Blake McLachlan, who has been reaping many skulls in the name of Khorne. And I thought, who better to give me a bit of a revisit and maybe add on to the layers of all the other Khorne discussions we've had so far. But before we get into the chat, I'll pass it over to Blake to introduce himself and tell us why, of all of the Chaos Gods, the 5, yes, Skaven, I will make sure I acknowledge you in the Pantheon.
No.
Whenever I say the 4 Chaos Gods, I always get the little snarky, reminding me, and then I'll say
Great
5.
Rat doesn't count.
And then they'll go, oh, but what about Hush Hut? Then I'm like, geez, guys. Anyway, let's talk about the mighty Khorne. Blake, who are you and why is Khorne the best Chaos God?
Yeah, so hey everyone, name's Blake. Started AOS in 2021. Come off 40k, got a bit sick of 40k. It was when it was just the rules bloat. And picked up a box of blood letters in like June 2021. And I was like, yeah, these guys are pretty cool. And then I very quickly ballooned out into buying like 2 bloodthirsters, and then it turned into a 3rd bloodthirster. And before I knew it, it was just Blades of Khorne all the way, diving into the lore. And I didn't realize that Blades of Khorne doesn't play like what it reads on the tin. I was expecting like Iron Jaws, like run forward and smash. Quickly found out it's actually very much a thinking person's army. Like it's all about the movement phase, planning 3 turns in ahead. At first, I was like, oh, this doesn't seem like fun, but I quickly grew to love the play style. And when you get all those pieces moving correctly and you bring down the crescendo of violence in that one winning turn, it's such a good feeling. I just find it's a very rewarding play style.
So, it does make you. I know there's been plenty of times I've had these discussions where I'm like, I feel like I personally wish it was like Daughters of Cain meets Iron Jaws.
Yeah,
you're right. It's like a beautiful science in it, and it's not just run forward and smash.
Yeah,
there's a lot of list tech, which makes it, I guess, multi-dimensional, which is kind of neat.
It's a very, very techie army compared to the last book. Like last book was definitely the whole book was held up by Scarbrand. You know, love the man, but the whole book was just Scarbrand and whatever else. And this new book is very techie. Everything in the book is great. All the war scrolls are great, and it's all pointed very well. I find there's no outliers.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd love a bunch of discounts. I actually quickly looked at the battle scroll to see if he had any points increases or decreases. But
bring the Boomthirster down. I need the Boomthirster down to 280. He's not good anymore.
Look, if I'm making any demands, I want a new Valkyr model. Like, just that's my one demand. Like, as soon as Valkyr gets a new sculpt, I think I'm a Khorne player. Like, I think that is the clutch.
I'm willing to bet it's coming with this new narrative series. I've been talking with Josh, another Crutchammer boy in Orange, and we both reckon when the Khorne book comes out for that narrative series, it's going to be Valkyr getting the glow up, because she's one of the last models in that book that actually needs a proper plastic model. Other than like a few really weird outliers, which are probably just going to get taken out to the back shed next edition.
Or like, what is it? What's the model that's in the first edition starter box that didn't have like a single model for years? I'm trying to say the Slaughter Brute, but I know it's not the Slaughter Brute. It's the
Korgorath.
The Korgorath. That's the one. In my head, it was Slaughter Brute. I'm like, no, Anthony, it's not the Slaughter Brute.
Justice for Korgorath. They're just. I want to love them. I want to use them, but they don't do anything.
So talk to me about Khorne, right? So obviously we have been talking Khorne, but I'm going to rein you in for a second. And you made a comment earlier about the updated book. So it's been what, 6 months ish? We've had this new Khorne book.
About that, yeah. I want to say like 4-6 months. I think the first big event that we had in Australia with it was Sydney Slaughter, if I'm not mistaken. I think that might have been the first big one. But yeah, a big shift from the old book, like huge shift from the old book. So the old list I used to run in the old book was just Scarbrand, 2 Boomthirsters, and for those at home who don't know, it's the Bloodthirster that does Mumbo mortal wounds if you get the jackpot sixes, a few blood reavers, and blood secretor. Very straightforward. It was just go big or go home. If you lost Scarbrand, it was a game over. But that was also the days where you could stack Scarbrand's mortal wound axe. So there were times my most memorable game was against Ash McEwen. He charged 2 Mega Gargants into Scarbrand. I've saved every single save I had to make, and then Scarbrand just dropped 2 Mega Gargants from full health, and that was game. But then moving into the new book, GW did a phenomenal job at making the entire book work. It was no longer Scarbrand finito. It was Bloodletters are fantastic now. Blood Warriors are great. Skull Reapers are great. Wrathmongers are great. Yada, yada, yada. You can do mortals, demons. They almost didn't miss. Like, almost all the War Scrolls are usable, which is the sign of a great book. A book can be externally balanced great and internally horrible, but I feel like the Blades of Khorne book is internally balanced well and externally balanced well in the current meta. Because if I'm not mistaken, it's the only book so far that hasn't had massive sweeping changes like the recent Slanesh book. It had a few big sweeping changes. Seraphon, I think it had a few changes, especially with like the teleports for one of them. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it's just a better book overall. I don't feel like I'm shoehorned into one particular playstyle. And you can see that in the lists that are performing worldwide. Like Mortal lists go great, Demon lists go great, mix of both go great. It's good.
And that there is right there, right? Because prior to this book, it felt like Demons was the winner. When I was reading this tome for the first time, I was generally impressed with the mortal side, especially things like Blood Crushers. And there was so many mortal things where I'm like, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And it was there was a couple of changes like the Blood Secretor and things like that.
Like some of the little mortal heroes suffer from Stormcast syndrome where there's just so many of them. So you're going to have a few bad ones, but that's just because there's so many of them. But yeah, like you said, everything in the book's better now. The old book was just, hey, Reapers of Vengeance and Bloodthirsters. That's it. You might as well rip all the other pages out of the book because that's all you can ever take.
But what I was going to call you out on was for the first time in a long time, it feels like you can do a blended list where in the past it felt like all demons or all mortals. But now it feels like I can do both, and I'm not trading. I'm not trading off something, and in fact, I'm adding layers to my army, which is really neat.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, but in regards to that, they managed to make even the lore, like how the units feel in the lore, they now translate to the tabletop even better. Like Blood Warriors feel like an anvil that you crash upon. And the Bloodletters just feel like a murderous host of demons that will just blend whatever gets in front of them.
Is there any favorite units that you've found so far in the current season?
You talk to anyone, I think you'll know the Bloodletters take the cake for me. When I first got into AOS in June 2021, and I just painted up 20 Bloodletters, and then I found out they're terrible. So they just sat on the shelves. And then as soon as the new book came around, I was like, they're either going to give them 2 attacks or they're going to give them 2-inch reach. And then GW came out, was like, how about both plus an extra wound? And I was like, bet. And I just painted up another 30. So most of my lists will take 2 units of 20 plus a unit of 10 in the toolbox for a unit of summons and take them in Bloodlords, and they'll just blend to whatever they touch. Followed up is the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury. He goes in every single list. You probably know about him. Gives out a 3d6 charge. Most people take him as a priest, so I use the Scorpion combo where he just uses a prayer to pull something towards him, given the no ward artifact. So you just, what's that? You've got a unit of 30, Mortec, just pull him in, shut off the ward, and then just blender. And then for third place is right now, it's got to be my Blood Crushers. They've just been the MVP. There's the pin and win. Like, it takes a lot to chew through 30 wounds on a 3-up, and they can just cross the table.
There's a couple of other units that I was doing my own research. I'm not a Khorne player, so I don't know. Take this with a grain of like I told you, as soon as Valkyrie gets a model, I'm in. I love painting red. I want Bloodthirsters, and Bloodletters, and I still have PSTD from first edition where Bloodletters could charge you in turn 1 and just completely slap you off the table.
There is the joke in the group that I can only paint in red.
I love painting red.
It seems like, all you do is paint in red. And I'm like, yeah, it's fun. It's easy.
It is a lot of fun, and I just love red. What I was going to say though is there's a couple of other units that I've seen really stand out in the competitive scene. Fleshhounds seem like they're back in and back really well, because
Yeah,
you used to take like one unit or two units, if you like, token screens and maybe
yeah,
an unbind or two. But I'm seeing people like go all in on Fleshhounds, and even like to complement that, then you see the Claws of Karanak coming in, and
yeah,
the cheeky pre-game move. I'm like, and as you mentioned as well, bloodletters, and you're seeing them not just in units of 10, as you mentioned, 20. I'm seeing even 30s. And
yeah,
I played, I think it was Bathurst GT where I played at your tournament a few months
yeah.
ago. Pretty sure I played against John Daly and he had 30, if not
Yeah,
20 bloodletters.
John was running
That's-
20 of them, yeah, and 20 bloodletters, Scarbrand, 6 blood crushers. That's just the triangle, and you just take and remove parts out of that triangle as you see fit.
Those bloodletters, they slap. They I had a new appreciation for bloodletters, finally seeing them back on the table. Like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I know the theory. Now I recall the actual experience.
And a lot of people are surprised at how wound dense they are. As soon as you tell people that,
Mm,
yeah, they're 2 wounds each, that's a brick of 40 wounds right there. Like they're dense. You know,
yeah,
they're
no,
they're um, they're more survivable than plague bearers at range, actually, which is saying something.
yeah. It's a pity you don't have the spell to give them a third extra wound. Obviously, you
No,
can't cast spells, but like the old plague bearers get them up to 3 wounds, and that's a
crazy.
true dense little block of
Yeah,
anvil.
100%.
So, given that this is GHB23, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up some slides, and I really want to kind of use this as a frame of reference because we are in Generals Handbook 20. I've said that like a million times. We are playing Entorian Locus, Primal Dice. Magic is as rampant as it's been since probably, I don't know if this was before your time, Blake, but during second edition, there was a time where there was really no cap with the amount of endless spells you could take. And
Yeah,
some mad Gits players like myself and Nathan Prescott and a few others, we'd run like 7 or 8 endless spells on the table for lols, right? Magic was wild. This is
yeah,
probably the first time since then, or even Warhammer Fantasy during like the Storm of Chaos, where
yeah,
magic seems like it's the ultimate, and you have no magic, but you are great against the magic. So
yeah,
I want to kind of see how you're going to keep us all in check.
yeah, 100%.
Which kind of brings me to the first point. Instead of getting into allegiance abilities and rules and yada, yada, yada,
Yeah,
I want to talk about Entorian Locus and the primal dice, whether it's the
yeah.
battalion to get extra primal dice or just the primal dice mechanic in itself. As a Khorne player, you don't play into this.
No.
So how do you think about the primal magic dice and stopping it and all of this stuff?
So yeah, as soon as I saw the rules for this, before we even saw the rules, I got a bit worried. Being a no magic faction before we saw the new GHB, thinking, oh, this is just going to be the addition of, Seraphon and Zinch. We're going to be left to the wayside. And then I saw that even though I'm having no wizards, you're still allowed to generate primal magic dice, and you can still use them on your unbinds, which Khorne has in spades from Slaughter Priest, Flesh Hounds, Karanak. I just take them, stack them, and then if someone wants to go, oh, I'm just going to dump all my primal dice into this, I'm like, cool, I still have unbinds. I'm just going to dump all my unbinds into that, stopping that. With the optimal focus, even though I don't have a wizard, you still get that extra CP, which works out well for me because it means I get the benefits of a warlord battalion almost every turn, just that extra CP, extra CP, extra CP, which is great if I'm going second, because sometimes I will just give the turn away. And then in regards to the primal magic, with all the Skull Throne plays into that. If someone does a normal miscast, they take D6 mortal wounds. If you do a primal miscast, that's D3 plus 3. They did FAQ it. People did used to play it as D6 plus 3, but that was insane. But GW came out very quick and was like, no. Primal miscast is very much different from a normal miscast. So you're not doing ridiculous wounds. But yeah, other than from this page, that's pretty much about it. Because we sort of get more into my anti-magic once we start talking about like the Nullstone artifacts and Hex Gorgeous Skulls and Blood Tithe abilities. That's where it really starts to sing.
And I think it's interesting, right? Because why I wanted to also raise this is that there is a lot of spellcasting right now. Seraphon is
Yeah,
quite dominant in the meta.
yeah,
You obviously Gits are still running around with plenty of spellcasting. Soul Black Grey Lords has a lot of
mm,
spellcasting. So there's a lot of magic, but you've also got things like your hatred of sorcery with your ward save against. There's also I was going to say there's a couple of little things that you've got against that
mm,
are very anti-magic that,
yeah,
even if you can't unbind all 10 spells, you've
I
got a
can
lot
still,
of defense. You've got
yeah,
plenty of defense as well.
100%. About 3 layers of defense before magic can hit me most of the time, especially against the demons. There's about 3 layers of defense, which can be a lot to get through.
Do you find with the one extra command point, if you go second and obviously you don't pick a wizard, do
Hmm.
you find that this also means that when you go to your heroic action, you don't try to generate an extra command because you've already got one in the bank? Or
No.
are you always going for that and just going for even more and just like spending like there's no tomorrow?
Well, if it was the old book, I would have gone for more because old book corn was very command point intensive, but new book corn is very much the opposite. So being able to get that command point opens me up to using the heroic action for a hero to attempt to unbind a spell or get rid of an endless spell, which I find very useful because it means I'm not wasting a slaughter priest, for example, trying to get rid of an endless spell. I can use one of my non-priests to do that, freeing up my slaughter priest to actually do a prayer. Because if he does get rid of an endless spell, for example, he then can't chant, which for Khorne, you need those chants.
Hmm. Yeah, good call. And that's what I thought. Like, I don't remember in the couple of games that I played with Corn, with new Corn in the current season, it hasn't felt like you've been very CP heavy.
No, 100% no.
Like you could have like very little CP and like it
Yeah.
actually hasn't mattered. Like, charge, but even then you can
Yeah.
get around some of the charge shenanigans as well.
Oh, yeah, because all of it's now just like pick unit, give buff. It's no longer pick unit, spend CP, get buff, which is fantastic. Take the Whippy Thirster, pick a unit. Oh, it's got a 3d6 charge now. Is that a CP? No, I just make it happen.
Having all that defense up your sleeve for
Mm.
your mighty
Blood
skull
crushes.
crushers, your
Yeah,
blood crushers and things like that. Like
100%.
it's nothing too crazy. But so
Mm.
far, Primal Magic Dice obviously great for unbinding, plays well into some of those other things that already have an unbind.
Yeah,
And I like your call out that you don't have to generate the CP. Go for the extra unbind and
yeah,
save your priests from wasting a chant.
yeah, 100%.
So when you look at, say, the 3 new spells that have been introduced,
Yeah.
are there ones that you are trying to unbind? Are you concerned about Blizzard? And obviously there has been a change now that I can't teleport my little wizard and then kind of
Yeah,
Blizzard you. Hoarfrost, obviously great value to be able to change a particular characteristic, hit,
yeah,
wound, or rend. Rupture probably less so now that
yeah.
it's changed a little bit. And Cron Spines, I know you were a Crutch Cron Spine player at one particular point.
Yeah, it was good. It was good in Corn. It was good in old Corn.
But do you see any of these spells as like if you and I were playing, like, are you
Hmm.
concerned about any of these spells, or how do you prioritize them? Or yeah, talk to me
Well,
about these 3.
so yeah, Hoarfrost is one I definitely try and go for an unbind on. Like I will throw a lot of resources at that because while Corn can hit hard on the demon side, we're very like build a paper. Like Bloodletters only have a 5-up save. Like Bloodthirsters only have a 4-up. So if you get that Rend 3, you'll just start chewing through me. So that is one spell I'm definitely looking to get rid of. Rupture, like you said, now that it's changed, you'll probably never see it again. Now that you can't just, I take a Cron Spine, I make it wild, like, deal with it. Like, I don't think that's going to be ever seen again. Merciless Blizzard is interesting because back when you could teleport and then cast it, I was very much keeping an eye out for it. But now that it's been changed, I'm like, okay, I'll just kill the wizard before you get a chance to pop it off. But there was one time at Dice the other week that you and I were at, a Law Seeker, because it can get set up before the game starts. It got set up and then shabingused my Bloodthirster off the table with Deep Thinkers, which I still think the jury's out as how Deep Thinkers works with endless spell, with casting of more than 10. But yeah, in regards back to the spells, Hoarfrost and Merciless Blizzard, I both see them as equal. Not so much for Merciless Blizzard because I'm running very wound dense units and I have a 5-up spell ignore. Most of the time, I'll take that 1 in 3 chance of ignoring it, which is the big bonus.
I guess the thing now that Blizzard has changed and you can't teleport, and by the way, the Lawseeker is probably one of the few units that actually can do that now because it's happening in deployment, not
100%.
in a movement phase or a magic hero phase.
Yeah.
You can really see Blizzard being set up, right? Like a opponent's not going to catch you off guard.
No.
If they catch you off guard, it's because you didn't notice the wizard and you're in 12, as opposed to someone cast a spell, they teleported, they blizzard you, and who saw that coming?
I'm just imagining someone like you parking a 65-point spider shaman in a whole brick of stabbers and hoping I forget it's there.
Yeah. That's what I have to rely on because previously,
Yeah.
like at Bathurst, I'd have my Mega Gargant, I'd pin you in with my Mega Gargant, and then I'd teleport the little Git Wizard behind it,
Yeah.
see through its legs,
You could see those from a mile away, and every list was like, "Oh, look, 2 spider shamans with Hawk with Merciless Blizzard, and one of them has Green Hand and Gork." Like, I wonder what he's doing.
I have no idea, but
Yeah.
Blizzard obviously very powerful. And
Blizzard's the only one that I have a chance to ignore because you can only do the ignore roll when you're affected by a spell. So Hoarfrost, I get nothing. I'm just banking on the Unbind. My Merciless Blizzard, I have the Unbind, and if I fail that, I can then try and ignore it.
Yeah. Obviously, by the way, folks, when we're talking about this, you need to prioritize, right? Because, depending on which army, there's going to be certain spells you want to shut down to stop them from doing certain things. So you'll see that kind of coming. But generally across these three, it's probably Hoarfrost, especially when you get into combat, except in probably the one, maybe two situations at most, Blizzard might come into play. So, think about how you use your unbinds and your dispels and your primal dice. Anything else to add here, Blake?
Not really on this. Just all about. I do see Merciless Blizzard as the second threat. Hoarfrost I find as the first threat because my first thought with Hoarfrost is, imagine that on 10 Blight Kings who are 5 attacks apiece. You can get them to they roll that 3. They could be 3s, rend 3, damage 1. They could really put the hurt on. So it's just a massive force multiplier on some units.
Yeah, now that we're in month 4 of this Generals Handbook, you're finding smart players have found the secret sauce in their army. Like for me, not that I'm the smart player, but for me, I love Hoarfrosting on Git Stabbers because they normally hit on 5s. They're 2-inch range, so it's like three ranks. I can give them 2 attacks with some Fanatics, and the sheer volume to bring it down from 5s to 2s is off the charts.
That's like when I was playing Jacob at Dice, he used Hoarfrost on a unit of 10 Blade Lords, and when you got them up to Rend 3 into Hordes, they just blend up. And I was like, damn, yeah, that's a play. That's a play.
Yeah. Hoarfrost is the one especially that you want to remove.
100%.
But it kind of leads us into, right, well, we're in this wizardy meta, lots of magic, a lot of interesting things that are happening. Battle plans are different as well, and there's some really fascinating mechanics in the battle plans. But as you think about the allegiance abilities, and if I start building a Khorne list for the first time, how are you thinking about your slaughter host? How are you thinking about, your coalition? Are you bringing in units from other parts of armies to fill a void? And are you building around any of these things? Like I've got to have a murderous to last for X reason, or talk to me about the allegiance abilities.
Yeah, so it's split down the middle. There's 3 sub-factions for mortals, 3 sub-factions for demons. So you got the Skullfiend, the Flayed, and the Goretide for your mortals, and then Reapers, Bloodlords, and Baleful Lords for the demon side. So I'm a demon player myself. At the moment, it's you either do Bloodlords or you do Reapers of Vengeance. Baleful Lords is, in my opinion, and I feel safe to say in a lot of Khorne players' opinions, pretty damn terrible. You get to fight a top bracket with Bloodthirsters if they're wholly within 8 inches of another Bloodthirster. So it's like you just got these big monsters having to be tucked together. So it's like, okay, not good at all. For my sub-faction in particular, Bloodlords, you play that if you're going extreme into Bloodletters because you get mortal wounds on 5s and 6s when you charge. Normally it's just 6s. So stuff like Bloodletters, Blood Crushers, Skull Cannons, they don't get it surprisingly because they don't have the Bloodletter keyword, even though there's 2 of them parked on it. Skull Throne, they get that. And Reapers of Vengeance is the better all-rounder. So if you're fighting into a hero and I think a monster, I don't know if it's monsters as well.
No, it's just hero. It's just
hero.
Target enemy hero.
and you get +1 to hit, which it can be fantastic for your big bloodthirsters. And it also works not just in melee, it's shooting and melee. So it can be fantastic for your skull cannons. You can just pick stuff off at range, and every time you kill a hero, you get 2 blood tithe instead of 1. So you can really get a rack up those blood tithe. Um, on the mortal side, I tend to lean more on the flayed for that 5-up ward after you fight, because that's the one thing the mortals really do lack is a ward. Followed up by Skullfiend Tribe, because you get strike first if you make a charge roll of 8 or more, which can be very good with the access to 3d6 charge. And Gore-Tide is good. Haven't really looked too much into its rules. If I remember correctly, it's got extra murder rolls, or you get +1 to wound.
+1 to wound for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly Gore-Tide Bloodbound units that target an enemy unit that's contesting an objective that you do not control, or that target an enemy unit that's wholly within enemy territory. So a lot of conditions.
Yeah, that reminds me of why I don't remember Gore-Tide that well. It was just, it's so conditional for it to work. So I'm just like, no, I don't want to go jumping through 2 or 3 hoops just to get my sub-faction ability.
Yeah, look, there's nothing in any of these that are, I mean, other than say the flayed, none of these are standing out specifically about responding to the magic meta. I mean, the ward is obviously going to be helpful, but outside of that, it's just building around what you do and really well, whether it's pluses to hit, whether it's fighting your top bracket, yada yada yada.
It's definitely old book was definitely build your list and then pick your sub faction, where the new book is pick your sub faction then build your list, which is, I believe, is the better way that a book should be designed.
Yeah. Or, I mean, you obviously build your list and then see what fits and then tweak accordingly, depending on how you like to build lists. Maybe you're a hobby butterfly.
Oh, don't tell me about it. I'm always floating.
What about the Legions of Chaos? So obviously there's been a lot of updates. Beast of Chaos had a book 10 months ago. Holy wow. 10 months ago.
Wow.
That's like, I remember like, oh wow, geez, the 10 months ago. Beast of Chaos got updated. You obviously can't tap into Tzeentch, Slaanesh, or Wizard stuff. But you can tap into Nurgle and Slaves, right?
Yeah. So yeah, in regards to that, I just want to touch on old book for a second again. I always go back to the old book, but you probably remember specifically the old book Slaves to Darkness Demon Prince and the Khorne Demon Prince. He was utterly disgusting. 18-inch bubble, Harvey runs and charges. He was a staple in almost every competitive Khorne list back in the day. So with that, it's more looking at old Khorne. You were always looking to coalition, where the new book, you don't have to, but you can bring some pretty powerful buffs in regards to like access to battle tactics, more specifically in this current GHB, because Khorne does struggle on the battle tactic front. Like, we're very good at standing on circles, like killing and getting the primary, but when in regards to battle tactics, I'm definitely looking at allies and coalitions to get those battle tactics off. From taking like a wizard unit, because there is a way to get them in. You take them as ally, not coalition, and there is a few that you can take, specifically the Underworld's warbands. I can't remember the exact name of them, but there's the Godsworn Hunt, and then there's the other one which just has 3 warriors, and then the wizard, and then Be'lakor to top it off.
Funny you ask about Be'lakor, because as we dip into this coalition / ally space, one of the questions from Discord actually had asked, what are your thoughts around introducing Be'lakor? And Be'lakor has had some points discounts. I don't know how, but Bellacor's gone down in points.
Yeah.
Obviously a great control piece. Thoughts on bringing Be'lakor into a Khorne list?
It does work in some lists. Personally, though, for myself, I don't fully see the value, because I'd rather be spending that points on something that I can use my sub-faction abilities on, that I can buff, that, it doesn't just bring that one and done, pin and win situation. Like, yes, his Dark Master ability is very good, but that was back when there was just those big Death Star units, which I feel we're not seeing that many of.
I partially agree, but I also partially disagree that it feels like there's a lot more castles in this game right now because
Yeah.
of this wizardy meta. And it feels like there might be a few more linchpins than there has been in the past, where dark
Yeah.
mastering that linchpin may stop them from either scoring the battle
Yeah.
tactic or stopping them from advancing or,
Yeah.
impacting them in a negative way.
In regards to that, like the dark mastering and stopping battle tactics or holding your unit up, Khorne can do that plenty with like blood tithe moves, like moving into engagement range and pinning a unit with a really cheap unit. So you can almost do what Be'lakor does with your own units. And if you're bringing Be'lakor for the cast, it's like okay, you go up against something like Lumineth or Seraphon, it's like, well, you just paid all those points and you're probably never going to get that spell off ever. So me personally, I'd rather spend the points on Blades of Khorne units that I can actually buff and use. But I'm not opposed to actually trying him out and seeing how he goes.
Yeah, I was doing some research just before we went live, and I noticed that in the last, say, 6 weeks, there's two Khorne players who have gone second in their respective tournaments. The Broken Realms for Minis War 4, and
Mhm.
then for the AG War of Realms. And
Yeah.
both of those players had a Be'lakor in the list, which was fascinating. I'm sure it's not the linchpin, but it
Mm.
does bring utility. So I think you've basically posed a good question. Be'lakor does a great piece and he does his thing really well. But
Mm.
can you invest those points into something that's going to generate you more blood tie? Like, do you run a bunch of blood warriors and generate
Yeah.
cheap blood tie? Is that another bloodthirster? Is it like, what can you do with those points?
Yeah, 100%. I'm not opposed to him. I just personally find you could spend those points elsewhere and get better value.
Do you find Khorne struggles with battle tactics? And the question behind the question is part of this Be'lakor question someone had asked, he said, do you think Bellacor's worth it for his ability and completion of battle tactics? Or is it a trap where the points have been spent? So I think it's the trade off, right? Yeah, Dark Master. And do you need the extra battle tactics to be scored? Or
Yeah.
are you in an all right spot?
Yeah, so in regards to the battle tactic, if you're taking Be'lakor for magical dominance, just take one of the cheaper wizard allies you can take and just park them in the back corner and just get it off turn one. Then you're like, cool, happy days. You get your turn one battle tactic for a fraction of the cost of Be'lakor. If you're taking him for Dark Master, you do become very lean on points. Like you got to know when to use it, how to use it, and really be able to bring the hammer down on whatever you decide to hold up. Like if you decide to dark mastering Croak, for example, could be very good, and just holding that up for a turn. Or if you're playing Gargants, like dark mastering a whole Gargant can be almost game ending sometimes. But in the same vein, I'll just run 6 blood crushes across the table and just be in your face, and then you're spending half the game dealing with those blood crushes. So instead of me holding up a unit with Dark Master, I'm holding up a unit with, a unit of blood crushers or a unit of blood warriors, and I can buff those units. Whereas Be'lakor, once he's done his thing, you can't hit him with a bronze flesh, you can't hero phase move him, you can't hit him with a prayer, you can't give him a 3d6 charge. He's sort of just like there, and it's like okay. He's done his job, and he doesn't have a ward at range. My other bloodthirsters do. So just pump into Be'lakor and drop him if you want, because that's most of the time what I believe would happen. People would see Be'lakor and they're like, okay, I'm just going to pump everything into him because I know he doesn't have a ward and I know what he does. So I'm just going to absolutely pump into him, because in the current meta, it's very easy to kill him, I believe.
So I think basically, like if I summarize what I'm hearing is either there's obviously a Dark Master, really powerful ability, help you score some battle tactics, but what is the trade-off for it? And can you get better value in something else? I guess it depends on ultimately how much you value Dark Master.
Yeah.
And is there something like, Catacross,
It also depends on your play style as well. If you're like, for some people, their playstyle might be Dark Master, and go for it. But my personal playstyle is definitely not Dark Master. I get a lot of enjoyment out of the movement game and maneuvering the pieces around the table to get the maximum effect out.
I think my point was basically going to be there is no right or wrong answer here.
Yeah,
I think
there's no right or wrong.
It ultimately is like after you do Dark Master, how are you getting value out of this model?
Yeah,
That's up to you to decide. For some people, they will
100%.
see incredible value. For some people, they'll probably find the points go somewhere else. But I think that's too long that we spent talking about Belly.
Matt Bellacore. This is
I
a
mean, it's an
Khorne show,
interesting
not a
piece.
Bellacore show.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece. You
Hmm.
now decide. You tell us in the chat what you think about Bellacore.
Yeah.
Outside of that, are there any things that you like in maybe some of the other armies? Like I know when I did this discussion in the past, people were thinking about allying in a Cygor. Given the anti-magic abilities, a monster, is a Cygor an interesting piece? Is there anything that you're attracted to outside of like maybe a couple of sneaky wizards from Slaves to Darkness?
At the moment, and I got talked into this by our good friend Liam, Furies, very good. Not only just in Khorne, but almost any Chaos army at the moment, because forgetting those battle tactics is so fast, they can just bounce around the table. Because you probably know this, a lot of these battle plans be out of your territory for it. And a lot of the battle plans, the territories are right up to the middle. So you need something that's very quick. So I'm looking at stuff that I can use as chaff. Like a unit of Furies can just, they go off to the edge of the table. And if someone spends a turn dealing with Furies on the edge, I'm like, cool, no worries. If you're choosing to deal with 80-point Furies and not with the 360-point Bloodletters marching up towards you, go for Gold Champion.
Yeah, most people, though, are ignoring them completely, which then goes, well, what do you do with them? And how can you steal objectives? How can you pin? How can you, because most people will look at Bloodthirsters and Bloodletters and Blood everything. Like, I'll ignore the Furies.
Yeah, and then it quickly finds out it's to turn 3 or turn 4, and those Furies are in the back line just grabbing objectives for the whole game, and then it's like, oh, they've actually turned out to win the game.
And they're cheap. They are super cheap.
Fantastic. And then other allies, it's like for Beasts of Chaos, not a whole lot. Like there was talk of the Cygor in the Blades of Khorne chat when the new GHB launched, but then it came down to the same discussion as Bellacore, like, can those points be spent elsewhere on better things? Like you can just do better with what Khorne brings, I find.
Yeah, but I haven't seen it really come to fruition. People talked about it early on, but it seems like maybe it was a good idea, but it didn't actually work well when it
came to fruition.
Yeah.
That's that main reason. I think a lot of people realized, oh, I can just do what the Cygor does, but better with my own allegiance abilities.
Yeah, and between obviously the primal dice, you've obviously got Hex Gorgeous Skulls, you've got the Skull Altar, and then all the other unbindy, magic-y stuff in your army. Yeah. Do you need another one? And maybe the answer was no.
Yeah, 100%.
What about the other 3 rules? You got Locus of Fury, Murderous to the Last, Hatred of Sorcery. Are these rules that you will build into, like you really want to tap into, let's say, Hatred of Sorcery, and I'm going to be building a bunch of things or do a bunch of stuff that's going to help me use this rule to the best of the ability? Or is it going to be, I'm building an army based on certain units and whatever they've got?
Yeah, so Locus of Fury was a huge buff. As soon as I read that rule, I was like, this is like the one thing that the army needed to mitigate those turn 1 alpha strikes. Because there's so many times you'd play and it was like long strikes or sentinels and, just being able to ping you off from range before you even got in. So the addition of having a 5-up ward against range on your demons only, mind you, it's only on the demons, no mortals. It's just, it can result in like your models feeling like they have an extra, like on the Bloodthirsters specifically, like an extra 5 wounds sometimes. They're only 16 wounds, but that 5-up ward can sometimes make them feel like they have 20, 23 wounds sometimes. Merge to the Last, because I'm mostly a demon player, I haven't really lent into this. I know if you take Gortide with Corvus Cool, you can really lean onto that rule and just have these suicide kamikaze units that will just go in, get wiped, and then you just roll a whole bunch of dice and like, okay, now you're dead because you killed me. Because it's just a better version of the Stormcast explosion. I remember when the rule was shown, the Stormcast players were lamenting because it's like, why?
It's better than the Stormcast, but it's not as good as zombies. I think that's kind of like the thing, right? Like you don't want to over-invest. Like you're not building like 100 zombies just to do the 5-out mortals because you're not regenerating like zombies. But it is in the games that I've played, it's been quite cheeky because a couple of mortals might be enough to trigger a battle shock. It might be enough to kind of chip away at a hero and bring it down a bracket, or even to kill those last couple of models on an objective that means that what I used to have, I've now lost control of.
That's what happened with at Dice the other week. Is I had 2 Chaos Chariots charge 2 Blood Reaver units, wipe the Blood Reaver units, and then the Chaos Chariots got wiped from merged to the last rolls. So I was like, cool, I got 4 Blood Tithe off that. Thank you.
And then there's the kicker. You get the extra blood tie, obviously.
Yeah. So doesn't matter who dies. Running as well from Battle Shot counts. My stuff, your stuff, doesn't matter. I get Blood Tithe. And
then obviously Hatred of Sorcery is just a passive thing, right? Like if you
Yeah.
happen to roll the 5 up and shrug, it's awesome, and you get a blood tie.
yeah,
With the amount of spells going out at the moment, you might generate yourself an extra 1 or 2 blood tie hero phase, depending on how offensive people are. Although there isn't as many offensive spells, most people like self-buffing or debuffing.
It's like I found in the 2 games at your tournament, I played against Seraphon twice, specifically Starborn, the ones with Croak.
Oh, yeah.
And because all their damage was in spells, there were times where I was like, I'm not even going to try and unbind. Just hit me with it, and I'm just going to try and generate the Blood Tithe. And there was one turn I went from like 2 Blood Tithe all the way up to 9. Because I was like, yeah, just hit me with it. Go for it. Go, go, go. And then the bonus thing about Hatred of Sorcery is it's on a 5-up, but I can spend 5 Blood Tithe and reduce the roll down to a 4-up. And I can do that as many times as I please. Only once per hero phase, though.
Which actually brings me perfectly to the blood tie ability. So this is one of your key abilities, folks. You every time a unit dies, yours or mine, you're generating yourself an extra blood tie. And as we've already kind of alluded to, there are other ways to get blood tie throughout the game through various mechanics. Some war scrolls, some abilities, some things like we just trigger the 5-up shrug and get us a blood tie. When this book first came out, maybe it was the internet, maybe it was a couple of vocal people, but murder lust was the thing that everyone spoke about. It was like murder lust, murder lust, murder lust. Now it has been slightly changed. I have I have used the new version of it as per Warhammer Community erratas.
Yeah.
How do you find you spend your blood tie? And I think maybe I'd like to scratch the surface a little bit here, right?
Yeah.
Do you spend it all the time? Are you saving up for certain points? Are you summoning? Are you like how do you think about this mechanic? Because for some people, they will hold their resources for too long. Some people will burn them too quickly.
Yeah.
Some people will get attracted to the summoning. It's hard mechanic for some people to kind of get their head across. How do you tap into it?
It's very much matchup dependent and what I'm playing against. Like, in regards to it as well, I find you do end up using Murder Lust almost every turn because it's even only just one unit can be game changing because you can move into combat with it. Like we're talking about before, you can shut down a battle tactic. It's like, oh, I need to use this hero to make a charge, and I'm like, okay, cool, Murder Lust. Now you're in combat. Say bye bye to your battle tactic. Spell Eater Curse for 2 blood tithe is fantastic. You play against Lumineth and they're like, oh, that casting roll is 25 with all my primal dice and deep things. I'm like, cool, I got 2 blood tithe. Doesn't happen. Brass Skull Meteor is fantastic in this GHB because there's so many little foot wizards going around. You 8 dice, each 5-ups a mortal wound. If something's on like 3 wounds left, you're probably going to cleave those last wounds off it. And if you're playing in Reapers of Vengeance, where you get 2 blood tithe for killing a hero, you spend the 3, you get 2 back. So it's a pretty good return on investment. Apocalyptic Frenzy, I'm not using that as much in the new book. In the old book, it was fantastic, especially on Scarbrand. Still can be used, but I'm not seeing it as much.
I can't say I've seen that being cashed in very often.
No, because the book is just killier now. You're not relying on that apocalyptic frenzy to finalize that, that damage. Like you can just do the damage in the combat phase. Rising Hatred, as I tapped on before, just add 1 to Hatred of Sorcery rolls, and that can be cumulative. So if I'm playing into a Seraphon, I might do Rising Hatred on my turn 1, and then I might do it on my turn 2 because I get to spend Blood Tithe at the end of the hero phase. So mine and yours. So if I get hit for a whole bunch of spells on a Seraphon's turn 1 and I get to 5, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to spend that 5. Now I'm down to a 4-up spell ignore, which can be, game changing against Seraphon. Heads Must Roll. I've never used this ever. I'm just like, I have other ways of improving my rend, and 6 blood tithe is a lot. 7, I'm sorry, I don't excuse the language, dog shit.
I feel like, and I remember talking to previous guests, and even when I reflect on the blood type now, it seems like anything above 4, 5,
Yeah.
obviously with Seraphon in the mix, but you're really spending between 1, 2, 3, and 4 in
Yeah.
most cases. You rarely are saving up to spend 8, and
Yeah.
when you do, it's not on the blood type table; it's summoning a demon.
Because what I'd rather do, if I'm sitting at like 8 blood tithe, for example, I'd rather spend 3 to have 3 units move, and then use the remaining 5 in the movement phase to bring in another 10 blood letters. I'd rather do that, because old book, it used to all go away. You spent 1 and you have 9, it all goes away. But new book, it's like they finally clued in that, Khorne should be like all the other chaos factions and
It was
not
so
lose it all if
dumb.
they spend
It
it.
was so dumb. Like you
Yeah.
just needed that one blood tide to unbind a spell or whatever it was, and
Yeah.
or everything else disappears completely,
Yeah.
and no
It
other
was
chaos
it
faction.
was so frustrating.
I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah.
But like, I think for me, like when I look at Corn players playing really well, and just my own personal experience, or even putting my head into a Corn as a Corn player,
Hmm.
I value bringing on 5 flesh hounds, bringing on 10 bloodletters, bringing on waves of bodies, as
Yeah.
opposed to saving up for these big things like Slaughter's Triumph,
Yeah.
or even saving for a Bloodthirster. Like I'd rather cash in throughout the game than
Yeah.
this big bang at the end.
That's what I found. Like for summons, I'll mostly focus on, getting a unit. In the old GHB, for example, having a Bloodmaster was fantastic. So we're all about Galician veterans, and
Mm.
summon units counted as Galician veterans. So I was always like, get another Galician veteran on the table for battle tactics early on. Nowadays, because I play Bloodlord specifically, if I can start getting more Bloodletters onto the table and charging in with a 3d6 charge, from my Whippy Thirster, it can be, game winning sometimes, especially against like Seraphon, where it's just turn after turn, generate blood tithe from ignores, bring in another 10 bloodletters, so on and so forth. And other than that, like you were saying, saving up, if I hit 8 blood tithe, I'd rather bring 20 bloodletters onto the table than get 1 extra attack. I'd rather do that. Because sometimes you bring 20 bloodletters onto the table, it's just like, well, that's game over. I can't deal with 40 wounds.
It's 40
This
wounds,
late in the
even
game.
20, even
Yeah.
sorry, even 10. Like if you're bringing on 10 bloodletters for 5, like that's 20 wounds, and they, as we know, they do mortals and slap, and like they've got good rules. That
the hard part is transporting the little things.
Well, I mean, Sylvaneth pours one out for you.
Yeah, pack up's the hardest. Gathering up my 50 bloodletters off to the table. It's like, I wish I was a Gargan player right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm building building 100 flagellants, so I'll feel you. I'll feel
100%.
you there.
But yeah, in regards to the blood tithe, I'm definitely looking at most games. If I'm playing against a melee heavy army like Fire Slayers, for example, I'll use Murderlust and just pin them in, stop them from charging, and then I can or I'm playing against heavy magic, I'm sitting on a Spell Eater Curse, because sometimes you just sit there and you just roll those 2 blood tithe tokens in your hands, and the opponent knows that their big spell isn't going to happen this turn, and it can play havoc on them because they're like, oh, I don't know, and then you throw a Pouch of Null Dust into the mix, and you can like take a baseball bat to like the knees of a magic phase, and for some armies it can be really hard.
Well, speak of the devil, we might as well talk about that, and that is that extra layer of the onion, which is unbinding. So you, in most situations, will not have a wizard. We talked about the ability to ally in a few from Slaves to Darkness. You obviously can't bring in a Beast of Chaos one, but there is some sneakiness. If you're not taking a wizard, what is your favorite Null Stone adornment?
Probably Pouch of Null Dust, even though it's done almost nothing for me. Out of the 3, it is the best for Khorne, because you don't really need the hand-carved Nullstone, because you have enough unbinds in the army as is. You don't need it. And then Polished Nullstone Pebble, we'll touch on that in the Mortals list that I actually made, because I did put it on a particular hero just to stop them from getting Merciless Blizzard off the table and whatnot. Try and protect them from those high damage spells if he's out in the middle. But yeah, Pouch and Null Dust, as we're saying, if you're playing against Lumineth or Seraphon or even something that has a lot of endless spells on the table, you just pop that and it just plays havoc on the player's mind because they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to start pumping primals into this and risk that primal miscast.
And and just for the folks at home, how does this layer with, say, the Skull Altar as well, being that miscasts will do even more damage?
Yeah, so a standard miscast, so a 2d6 roll, will take d6 mortal wounds. If they decide to start throwing primal into the mix, it then just goes to the d3 plus 3. When the GHB first launched, it wasn't clarified yet, so a lot of players were thinking that it was d6 plus 3, which was insane. But then GW very quickly came out and was like, no, primal miscast is very much a different kettle of fish from a normal miscast. But even then, d3 plus 3 is normally enough to just pop a little Antorian Locust Wizard or grievously wound them to the point where I can just Brass Skull Meteor them off the table at the end of the hero phase.
I was literally about to say that afterwards. Like, even if they take like 4 wounds or something, that brass meteor could be the difference, and then chip away. And like if their grand strategy is spellcasting Savant, or you're in the battle plan where you get extra victory points for killing an Antorian Locust, all of a sudden, like it just keeps layering and layering. And for me, my Gits army has a bunch of 5 wound idiots. I'd rather just not cast when you throw that down. Like, if you do Pouch and Null Dust, I'm like, yeah, nah, I'm good this magic phase, thank you.
Yeah, you just hold it off and be like, and then that can sometimes, you lose all your big bonus spells, and it's like, oh. But other than that,
top of the turn, you go second, you win prio. That's a long stretch of time where I don't have my critical buffs because I was scared of Pouch of Null Dust.
Actually getting him out. But touching on the other ones, like Hand-Carved Nullstone, I find that can be good inside like giants, I think, where they don't really have access to unbinds. But even then, I'd rather take the the shrug, the polished nullstone pebble. I think that would probably be better. Fire Slayers probably find hand-carved nullstone a bit better because they don't have access to those innate unbinds like Khorne does. But out of the 3, you will find Pouch and Null Dust in almost every list.
Yeah. No, I would tend to agree with although unless you don't have that many priests in your army, and you're concerned about losing one of your chants because you're dispelling an endless spell, I could maybe see the Nullstone icon being helpful. But if you think you've got enough wizards and unbinding in your army, you probably don't need another one.
Yeah, you just leave it alone.
Yeah, it feels like maybe a bit too much. Are there any general command traits? And obviously, we can't tap into the Generals Handbook ones for obvious reasons. There's no.
I don't even know what they are because I just haven't.
There's no Shaman of the Chilled Land for Khorne. There's no way to get Hoarfrost or imagine Hoarfrost in Khorne. Like,
I even toyed with the idea of it. I was like, I was looking through all the allies. I was like, how the fuck can I shoehorn Hoarfrost into Khorne? But
you can't.
But the command traits. Like with the sub-factions, they're just split down the middle, 4 for demons, 4 for mortals. For the demon one, 99% of the time, you'll see Firebrand. You take that on the Whippy Thirst and make him a priest. It's the taken most of the time. When the book did drop, though, I did have a list which I took Embodiment of Wrath on a Blood Throne in a heavy bloodletter list, because he has a prayer where you can bring back D6 slain bloodletters, and then you throw on a command trait to bring back D3 slain models. So you could bring back D6 plus D3 bloodletters to a unit, which could just be oppressive. It's like, oh, you just killed 5 of them and they're back. But then it all quickly fell away to just take Firebrand.
Can I just say how disappointing Favored by Khorne is? Like, that feels like the opposite of being favored by Khorne. It feels like a token 5-cent piece being thrown at you. Like, here's
if it was like, oh, you start the game with like 2 or like 2 or 3, I'd be like, okay. Or even D3, I could be like, okay, I'll take the command trait for the gamble. If I get that big 3, I'm like, yeah, this is gas. But 1 blood tithe, I'm just like, yeah, I'd rather just take like white out to that command trait in the book because I'm never going to use it.
Yeah, it's just a bit sad. What about the mortal side? Is it High Priest?
Yeah, mortal list like High Priest. You take that because chant 2 prayers instead of 1. But saying that, it also does then require you to take a magnificent to get 2 prayers on each priest, because you can only take the 1 prayer per priest. So you sort of then do have to take the extra prayer to make the most of it. Or, you could take, Barbarian Lord isn't bad if you're leaning heavily into the heavy Blood Reaver unit, just pinning, just pinning stuff with little 80-point chaff units, just pin, 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 pin. Like, it isn't going to do damage, but you're just going to keep stuff busy for the whole game.
Yeah.
But other than that, out of the 4, it's High Priest and Firebrand, funny because both are related to priests.
And High Priest is just like, you've got so many good prayers. Like, that's the thing, right? Your prayer law is just on. I think it's next year. Like, your prayer law is just on fire with the amount
GW did a great job. They're like, okay, these guys don't have magic. Let's make their prayer law just absolutely like nuts.
I got to ask you though, like, when I look at your demon artifacts, I almost feel like one of these artifacts becomes stock standard with a choice. Like, you could almost confuse it that it comes free with the Bloodthirster of an Unfettered Fury.
Yeah,
because that King of Blades, I don't think I've ever seen an Unfettered Fury Bloodthirster without the King of Blades.
Because it's old Argath was just +1 to hit against monsters and heroes, and then they changed it to this, which is fantastic, especially in the current meta.
Why? Like, connect the dots for me. Why is shutting off wards? Because, like, your Nurgle Demon Prince, people talked about the idea and and they don't take him very often these days.
So what makes it so good, especially on the Whippy Thirster, is the ability to then make him that priest, then make him have the prayer to pull something 8 inches towards you. And when you do that prayer, they can actually end that move in engagement range of that Bloodthirster, thus putting him in range of that no wards allowed. Because it's such a massive base, you can clip so many units and shut off wards. Because in the meta at the moment, Soulblight is the main thing that pops to mind. Like, you want to strip away those defenses on those zombies, or if you're playing into the Rattle Boys. What are they called again? The Necrons of AOS.
Ossiarch Bone Reapers.
Ossiarch,
You're a Mortis Guard and your Necropolis.
Yeah. If because you want to be able to shut those wards off and just absolutely go to town on them. The thing that made me take Argath was playing against my mate Keith, because he plays like cows in Lumineth, and know that those guys they're a wall. And I took my Bloodletters and I didn't have the ability to shut off the wards, and he doesn't care about the rend. And then he had a 4-up ward against me on objectives. So I was like, okay, I need to be able to find a way to break through this wall. Argath is the way to go. And as soon as you shut those wards off, I was just able to clean stuff up. It's like, yep, this is the artifact to take. Following secondly for demons is Halo of Blood, because you can take that on, let's say, a Bloodmaster. And his War Scroll ability states that when he fights, he can choose a Bloodletter unit wholly within 16, I think. And then the Bloodletter unit and him can fight in either order. So when you pull him in, that Bloodletter unit then gets strike first. So you have the ability to go Bloodletter, Bloodmaster, then follow it up with another unit of Bloodletters, and just really bring the hammer down. So sometimes in some lists, I will take an extra artifact just to get access to those 2 artifacts.
But you did say as well, and here's the challenge, is, if you've got a lot of priests, then maybe going with your Magnificent to get an extra prayer. The question is, like, do you get like 4 extra prayers, or do you get an extra artifact? And what's worth more to you? And I'd probably argue the prayers would be more valuable in a lot of lists.
Yeah, it really depends how many priests you're taking. Like, I find if you're taking like 4 priests, you can get away with just 1 prayer each. If you're taking like 2 or 3, you'll want those extra prayers. Especially once you start talking about needing a priest to get your judgments out, which are like Khorne's endless spells. That we can touch on those when we get to them. For the Bloodbound side, because like I've said, I'm a demon player, I really haven't looked much at it, but Banner of Blood is what stands out to me a lot, is just being able to get reroll charges for units wholly within 16. And because you have the ability to move the bearer of that artifact around with prayers and blood tithe movements, you can set that up, and you're really never going to have to worry about being outside of the range of that banner, because you can just move him in the hero phase and then set everything else up, and then you go, cool, I got reroll charges now.
Yeah, and what's obviously great is even though it is a mortal artifact, it affects Blades of Khorne in general. So it
Yeah.
will work in a demon army just
Mm.
on a mortal blood secretor unit.
Yeah, which is good because they did strip away a lot of the keyword bingo, which the old book did have for some of its artifacts. A lot of it was very much keyword bingo.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with the artifacts. I think like there's some interesting things, but when you look at mortals, they don't have this big juggernaut hero. So like, you
Yeah.
don't really want to be charging in combat, improving the rend or, doing a
Mm.
bunch of like mortal wounds causing and like, like the blood rune. Like there's no killy mortal hero. So I'd rather, use it as a buff piece like the Banner of Blood.
Yeah.
Worst case, the Crimson Plate as well to get the water 5 up.
Yeah, I have thought about the Crimson Plate, especially if you take a High Priest, just give him Crimson Plate on top of it, make him a little bit more tanky, but there's no real hard-hitting mortal characters that make me really want to go, I want to give him a war to make him survive.
Look, if I'm in a meta, right, where Soulblade Gravelords are casting a lot of Spirit Gale, and as you said, Seraphon are doing a bunch of like Rain of Stars and things like that, and I need to protect my general, and I need
Mm.
the ward.
Because
Yeah, that could work.
because
But if
on
I
top of that, you'd get your 5-up Spell Shrug, and if you fail that, then you got the ward underneath. So it just comes into that onion of protection.
if that's critical to your list is the key, right? If it's
Yeah.
not that critical, you don't need to protect it, so
Mm.
don't take the artifact. But
Yeah.
every list is going to be different. But I tell you what, what is going to be different is your prayer choices. There are some 6. I think when I remember looking at this in the past, like there felt like there was 4, if not 5, really good prayers. Like it was hard to choose a
Yeah,
favorite.
they're all good, and then once you start taking into account the War Scroll prayers, like the Slaughter Priest War Scroll prayer, Realm Gore Ritualist, Blood Masters, you got to like 6, 7, 8, 9, like 9, 10 different prayers across the whole book, which is a lot. But in regards to this,
Before you get into this, I want to call you up on the Realm Gore Ritualist. Good unit. I'm not seeing a lot of it on the table. Like it seemed like an interesting pick, but I'm not seeing a lot of it.
Before it was taken up to 100 points, it was 90 points as opposed to 100 compared to a Slaughter Priest. It was like, I'm going to take the Realm Gore because it's cheaper. But then now that they're one-on-one with the Slaughter Priest, I'm like, I'll take a Slaughter Priest that has an Unbind. I'd rather take that, like, especially in this current GHB. It's her War Scroll prayer isn't bad, but then it all comes down to I'd rather be using a prayer off this prayer lore as opposed to her War Scroll prayer.
And it felt like some of her abilities, again, were just too restrictive. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Very
It was
much.
like on an objective or a terrain feature.
Yeah.
And
She shines better in a mortal list, and because I play demons, I'm like, yeah, I'll take. I took her because she was cheap, but now then as soon as she goes in the same point bracket as a Slaughter Priest, I'm like, I'll just take a Slaughter Priest.
yeah, that seemed like one of the kickers in the past where it was an easy way to get up to the Gore Tide Battalion because she was cheaper. But yeah, when I looked at lists right now, like I haven't seen them very rarely. They're pretty rare.
Yeah. With
But
the
press, talk to me.
yes,
Talk to me about press.
let's go top to bottom. So yeah, Blood Sacrifice. I'll try to take one priest that knows that. Especially, it's just good to have when you're out of range for like buffing prayers. It can just be good for when you need that one extra blood tithe to get that one key ability off. Like you're at 4 blood tithe. I need that extra one to get another 10 blood letters under the table. I'll just use Blood Sacrifice. Ding, doesn't matter to take D3 mortal wounds on a Slaughter Priest at the back of the board, because he's away from everything. And it's just good to have a little toolbox prayer. Bloodbind goes back to my Scorpion build on the Whip Thirster, as I like to say. In range, casting value 3, very low, range of 16, and you pick a unit within range, not wholly within, just within 16. So you don't have to worry about, capping a whole big unit. And you just point it and you go, yeah, all of them have to move 8 inches towards me now. Like every model has to move 8 inches. Old Bloodbind, it was just one model had to move 8, then everything else could go in coherency because they would just daisy chain out. And then they changed it. Everything has to move 8. So let's say, you're playing against like, you don't see it anymore, but like a Techless Castle, and like they got the protection of Techless. I'll just pull you out of buff range, or like I'll pull you out of Unleash Hell range, or I'll pull you off an objective. Or even I've thought, in the Siphon Meltwater mission, you can just pull an enemy unit onto an objective, and then they start to that kicks off that objective for them. And then it starts to siphon the meltwater, and it can start to make them panic, going, "Oh no, I'm starting to siphon that objective away." You're like, "Yeah, I can start to make you run out of primary early." I just love it because it catches so many people off guard, especially because when you hero phase move him and then you use that prayer, you can just pull stuff out of into a very bad position and then just clean it up.
It
Bronze
does.
Flesh.
It does allow you to do a lot of sneaky things. There's a
Mm.
lot of things you can think about, as you mentioned. Buff rangers, getting them, but there's just a lot. Like I won't try
It's
to give you all the examples,
it's
but like
yeah.
it's a thinking person's spell, a prayer,
Mm.
and it'll give you a lot of value.
Yeah. Bronze Flesh is just our access to Mystic Shield. Very simple. You throw that on a unit of Blood Crushers or a unit of Mighty Skull Crushers. Killer Instinct, you'll hear me do this one every turn. You just pick one unit. It can make a normal move. You can't move into combat range with this one, unlike the Blood Tithe move, but it's still very good because it's not random. So you give that to a Bloodthirster, it can just move 12 inches in the hero phase. Unholy Flames, I'll sometimes take that on Blood Crushers because then you can just give a pip a rend to their hooves. So it's not bad. It's not at the top of my list. Then we get to Witchbane Curse. Never took this in the old GHB, but now, because it's unlimited range, you just pick one little wizard on the corner of the table and you say, okay, cool, you fail a spell, you take D3 mortal wounds, and you have to subtract one from your casting roll. So it's not bad. Not at the top of my list. For me, it definitely would be Bronze Flesh, Killer Instinct is the two that I'm always looking at going for. And then Bloodbind is, a close third because I can just use its tech.
I've seen a lot of players use Blood Sacrifice to kickstart their Blood Tithe, like turn one, whether if they want to do Murder Lust in turn one, just go for that cheeky Blood Sacrifice.
It was really, really powerful back when it was one Blood Tithe and move 3 units, but now that they've changed it to one Blood Tithe, you spend up to 3 and move up to 3, which I don't mind. I think it's more balanced that way because, to be totally honest, when it was one Blood Tithe for 3 units, you only ever really were looking to move 1 unit. The other 2 units were just gravy on top.
Yeah. And to be fair, like as soon as they've made this change, it seems like the noise around Murder Lust has dramatically dropped. Or everyone's just focused on the new thing, which was OVR for a while. Now it's kind of like Seraphon. Yeah.
I still get the boys saying shouldn't be able to move into engagement range. I'm like, yeah, but Khorne's all about getting into combat and making it as unfun as possible. That's just how the army's built.
There's a lot of things that shouldn't happen, like being able to run and then pile in 6. Like we're going to be picking on things. There's a lot of things on that list. So and by the way, I tend to agree with you. Like there's a lot of great choices, but Blonde's playing against Mighty Skull Crushers. That's the Immortals, right? I always get confused. You got the Skull Crushers and you got the
Blood Crushers.
The Mortals, getting them on a 2+ with Bronze Flesh, and then all that defensing them in combat, being able to absorb like up to Ren -2 and stick to that 3-up save with a unit of reinforced or even unreinforced, like that is a big block of pain, and it's hard to shift.
Because Blood Crushers are a 3-up base save, and Skull Crushers are a 2-up base save. So you hit them with Bronze Flesh and all that defense on Skull Crushers. They're a 0-up save. And they can just become downright oppressive. Like you're just fighting that wall. The reason I prefer Blood Crushers is because if they roll a 1 on Battle Shock, you just get to bring back a whole last Blood Crusher because of the demon rules. And that can sometimes just, you can see the opponent's heart sink when it's just like, oh, I rolled a 1, boop, there's a Blood Crusher back.
Yeah. By the way, folks, you clearly cannot get to a 0 save. 1s always fail. But what we're talking about is you can reduce the impacts of Ren to like -2. So a 2-up save, reducing Ren by 2, you're still on 2. So it's very demoralizing. And then you go, oh, the way to get out of this is mortal wounds. And I try to cast spells. Oh, wait, you have a 5-up shrug. Oh, wait, you have primal magic dice. Oh, wait, there's all this stuff to stop me from doing mortal wounds. So it's like I'm pinned, I'm stuck, and I can't get out of it unless I retreat. And that gives up a combat phase and yada, yada, yada.
Like in a 5-turn game, you keep a few units pinned for like 2 turns. That can be it. That can be game sometimes.
It's a lot of wounds to chew through.
It is.
A lot of wounds to chew through.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So we already talked about this, so we'll skip this. You ruined
Yeah,
Christmas. You got in
yeah.
front of this. Actually, I will ask one question. A question came from Discord on this one. Is why are Skull Reapers on paper as good or better than Bloodletters? What? Why take Skull Reapers on paper as good or better than Bloodletters,
Yeah,
but
I
also
remember reading
rarely
that
seen
question.
in competitive? Is that a question? I'm not.
I think what it boils down to is like Skull Reapers on paper look like on par with Bloodletters or slightly better, but you never see them get taken. I think it just comes down to points. It's 190 for 5 Skull Reapers and 180 for 10 Bloodletters. So once you generally will want to take reinforced of either. So while Skull Reapers, their mortal wounds on the hit roll don't end. They stack, whereas the Bloodletters they cap off. They're like attack sequence ends where Skull Reapers will roll on. For me, I think it just comes down to the ability to what's the word I'm looking for here? I think it just comes down to the points. Like at the moment, it is a very lean army.
Mm,
And that extra 20-point difference between a unit of 40 Bloodletters and a unit of 10 Skull Reapers can sometimes mean the difference between taking a buffing Slaughter Priest or taking another screen. So I think that's why you're not taking it. And I think it's also due to the demon side being slightly better. Like, the Reapers of Vengeance only buffs demons, Bloodlords only buffs Bloodletters. So if you're attacking into those sub factions, you're not going to take Skull Reapers because they don't benefit from the bonuses. Whereas if you're taking in like Skullfiend Tribe or the Flayed, I can see an argument for taking a Brick of 10. And I think it also comes back to the rally. So Blood Secretor has a 4-up rally for mortals. And before they changed it to a 10 wound limit, a lot of people were saying, okay, take Skull Reapers, just rally them every turn. Like play Bloodstalker, like play snakes from, Daughters of Cain. Just run in, kill, get killed, doesn't matter, 4-up rally back, rinse and repeat. But then they changed it where you can only bring back 3 because they're 3 wounds apiece. So it's like, okay, I'd rather just take Bloodlords because I can just bring them back with prayers or I can bring them back with summoning. So it's like, yeah, I'd rather just take that.
Yeah, the rally change was massive in some armies. I know my gits, I used to really value the rally, especially like with Squigs or even with my Horde of Grots. Now I'm like, I only do 10. I mean, 10 is still great, but it's like it's not a viable strategy in a lot of cases, unless it's a long game.
As soon as I saw the change to rally, like I was bad touched by Zealous Orator in Daughters of Cain so many times. I was like, I for one was like, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah. Look, and I've also rallied the old Bathurst, the first Bathurst. I rallied a dragon, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. So I'm just lucky. I'm just lucky it's 10 wounds and not 8 wounds. Because if it was 8 wounds, like I wouldn't be able to rally a dragon, and that's
100%.
sad. But it's a 6-up. But thank you for that one. One thing I'm really keen to talk about is clearly not the Entorian Acolytes Battalion because
Yeah, what's that?
But it's the Wizard Fighters of Entor because it's a battalion that I'm still yet to find value. Like, it's an interesting one, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, like, how many situations do you find yourself where the melee attacks that go into a wizard, you get the extra attack? Now, obviously, wizard heroes make sense.
Yeah.
But, like, it seems situational compared to a Warlord, a Command Entourage, a Vanguard. Like, there's so many good choices.
So yeah, with the Wizard Finders, I believe they did clarify that it does work on stuff like Wardens and Sentinels and those units that are conditional wizards. I do believe they've clarified that it does work against them. So I do think that brings some value. But like you said, that one extra attack into those specific units, you don't really need. Like, I'd rather be teching into getting that artifact or getting my drops lower. That's personally how I see it. But I did use it in the upcoming Mortal list that you'll see because I figured might come in handy if you do go up against something like a brick of 20 Wardens that you probably will never see.
Yeah, it seems like something that people are just chucking into their list as opposed to a viable strategy like people were building around bounty hunters or, some other battalion. This just seems like, I've got the right combination. It might come up in a play, but I have not found an example yet where people are like, yep, Wizard Finders of Antor has done something and it helped me win the game
Yeah.
or, turn the tide of battle.
Yeah. Touching on Antorian acolytes, like even though I can't use it, it does actually help me because a lot of the current meta armies are taking that. So they're no longer taking these 1-drop, 2-drops. They're up to like 4 or 5 drops. And because most Khorne lists, you will see them at about 4 drops. That's a command entourage and a battle reg. Taking that 4 drops in the current GHB with Antorian acolytes, you can sometimes outdrop those heavy magic lists like a Seraphon or sometimes a Lumineth, depending on how they've played, because they want that extra primal dice, which plays into me. I'm like, okay, you've taken Antorian acolytes, you've bumped your drops right up. I've deliberately kept mine low to take first and get you pinned. So yeah, that's how I see Antorian acolytes.
Are you finding that Khorne wants to go first? Wants to be able to choose who goes first? Is that something that is important to you?
From old book, I was always told you're going first, because there was no way I could get into combat. But now that I have access to these hero phase moves, these 3d6 charges, like I want to go first and I want to get you pinned in with these. I want to go first. I want to get my defensive prayers up. I want to pin you with my blood crushes. I want to position myself correctly before you even get a chance to open up.
I know what's terrified me in the past as well is getting off Hexgorger Skulls. A lot of players right now don't have a very good turn 1 battle tactic, and intimidate the invaders can be difficult. So magical dominance is one that most people will rely on, and having those Hexgorger Skulls up just makes it even harder to pull off that battle tactic.
Yeah, and Hexgorger Skulls, if you roll that unmodified 8, you forget the spell. So I'll at your event, I had Hexgorger Skulls parked inside a Croak Castle, and I believe it was against Jeff from Age Assault or whatever it is. I can't remember the team name, and he just forego casting because he's like, I'm too scared of rolling that unmodified 8 and just forgetting Croak's damage spell, so I'm just going to leave it. So Hexgorger Skulls can play into that.
And a lot of people just want to cast Mystic Shield. Forgetting Mystic Shield, that's brutal.
Mystic Shield, you forget that, or you sometimes you can make something forget Hoarfrost, and that's just an absolute meme.
Yeah, that's you deserve it. Yeah. You deserve it though. But yeah, long story short, so basically, when you're taking a turn 1, it's not because you want to alpha strike and hit them in the face in turn 1. Look, there's some battle plans like no risk for that reward where you absolutely can do that pretty easily.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's about your defensive buffs, it's about board control, it's about all the
getting
Hexgorgers
up, getting into unbind range, because I know sometimes players will deploy outside of unbind range, and I'm like, I want to get into unbind range, get myself ready.
And that's it, right? You can reposition and get yourself into unbind range, shut them down, do the juicy things.
100%.
So I'm hearing Wizard Fighters of Antor, interesting. It's obviously not a strategy building around and unlocking the keys to the Kingdom of Khorne. It's just, I got the units.
It's no Galician veterans. It's no bounty hunters.
There's no bounty hunters. It's like someone will prove to me one day that I can turn the tide, like some super, like maybe Sawblade Gravelords. I know we've kind of moved away from the Legion of Night build, but going into like a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon or some type of wizard hero like that, magic.
100%.
Magic. Otherwise, it's like, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, if I could take, Wizard Finders and I could still add 1 attack to Scarbrand's Mortal Wound Axe, I take it every day of the week.
Sure. There's a lot of things that I'd like to do, but I can't do it in that one. It's just a little bit too restrictive for me. Again, if one of these are going into a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, it's not my 5 wound idiot hero.
With 1 extra attack that's going to make
he's not going to do anything to it. What about your grand strats? Are you someone who is still tapping into Khorne's grand strats, or are you someone?
Never.
And I'm glad you said that, because I remember going through the grand strategies, and it was pretty like Khorne's one, but it's one of the low ones.
The Khorne ones just aren't good. Like off the top of my head, the one where it's like, oh, you're going to summon demons every turn. I'm just like, no.
Yes, that's ridiculous.
Why would I spend my resources to summon demons every turn?
And
You know,
isn't another one you've got to spend blood tie every turn, but you can't double up? Was that another one that you
I
had?
think so. I don't know off the top of my head because I've just never taken them because they're so
Yeah.
conditional.
Reap the blood tide. So when the battle ends, you complete the grand strategy. If every battle round after your first, you've spent a blood tide point, seems reasonable. But then the second condition is, and you did not use the same blood tithe reward more than once. So the
Yeah, so
fact that
it's like, oh, murder us once, like, stop a spell once. It's like, not worth.
in the current meta as well, I want to stop as many spells as possible.
Mm.
So taking that off the table, I don't like that.
Yeah, 100%.
Uh,
Yeah, but yeah, with these grand strategies, as you probably noticed, a lot of it, two of them, you need wizards. Control the Nexus, you need wizards. Spellcasting Savant, you need wizards. Magic Made Manifest, you need wizards. So for me, most corn lists, you'll see Sword or Sorcery or Overshadow. Those are the two. Sword or Sorcery more so. Because sometimes against some armies, that's just an auto. Like I played Fire Slayers. They have no wizards. That's just an auto 3 points. I'm 3 points on the board before the game's even started.
mm.
And then Overshadow, I was looking at it, but then I was like, it's too swingy because you've got to kill all the battle lines. So if someone sees that you got that, they might just park you into the battle line in the corner and just protect it for the whole game and stop you from getting at it. Whereas Sword or Sorcery, I have so many ways of just plinking wizards off the table. Brassfall Meteor, Bloodbind to pull them towards me, physically just charging in and killing them. There's so many different ways, or using my Wrath of Axing evocation to plink them. So Slaughter of Sorcery I find is the best one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you find it challenging sometimes to get to wizards, especially ones that are sitting behind the back, slinging, let's say, your Warsong Revenant, for example. Even like, for example, I run the Fungui Cave Shaman who can't be targeted outside 12 period, like not the Lookout Server rule. So I can hide that Fungoid, and like that would be a difficult challenge for you to kind of get to do Slaughter of Sorcery there.
I do find there are some matchups where it's very hard. Like when I played Jacob's Strand's Lumineth, I was like, damn, this is going to be real hard to get because like everything is a wizard. But there are some matchups, more often than not, you're going to get it. More often than not. When I played Slaves to Darkness, I managed to pop off all their wizards because they need to be on the front line to be in range of those units to buff. They can't afford to hang back. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be able to get you. So I find that's why Slaughter of Sorcery is the best way to go.
Yeah, no. I would agree with you. By the way, I think it's the stronger of the options, but know that there are going to be some times where killing an Alariel comes back from the dead late game, and it's a very easy cast roll. That one bad roll at the end where there's nothing on the table, basically.
Yeah,
Alariel stopped you.
And a key thing to note, it says no wizard units on the battlefield, not enemy wizards. So let's say you take your Be'lakor and you take Slaughter of Sorcery. You have to find a way to get your own Be'lakor killed or off the table. Otherwise, you don't get your grand strategy. That rolls into why I also don't see a huge value in Be'lakor, because then he makes getting one of the easier grand strategies nigh impossible without getting him killed.
Yes, you're either going Overshadow or picking something from your book, and the book ones are not very good.
They're not good at all, no.
I do not like them at all.
No.
It's and I always hate ones that force you to do 4 battle tactics from your book. I just hate the fact that I have to ignore the Generals Handbook stuff. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, which sucks.
Which kind of leads us to this. Like, you've actually got a fair good option, right? There's a fair few here that, whether it's Lead to the Maelstrom, Surround and Destroy, Bait and Trap, Reprisal can come into play, Intimidate. This alone, you've got some good choices.
Yeah, so for stuff like this, I'm generally looking at like Surround and Destroy or Intimidate the Invaders turn 1. The Khorne battle tactics aren't half bad, unlike the grand strategies. Like some of the battle tactics are actually achievable, like especially against hordes. Like one of the battle tactics is Trial of Skulls. Pick a unit, as long as that unit kills 8 models, battle tactic done. Or pick a wizard, kill it, which is fantastic in this GHB. Or a really good late one is No Cowards Among Us. Just have everything within 8 inches. You know, if I'm down to like my last 3 models, I'm like, cool, No Cowards Among Us, done. So it's mostly that turn 1 is where Khorne can struggle. It's where you see a lot of people take that wizard for magical dominance, which, you know, can be good, but as I had a discussion with a few people, you take it and then you go against something like Lumineth or Croak, and it's like, you're not getting it. So I was like, okay, rather take something like to do with the movement phase. That's why I was like, okay, I'll take the Furies for Surround and Destroy because I can control the movement phase fully. I can't control the magic phase. It's up to the dice.
Yeah, I was going to say the two units of Fury, for example, make Surround and Destroy perfect, and it complements you so well because when they die, you generate blood tie from them. If they
And I
don't
don't
die,
care. Yeah.
Yeah,
They run around the back of the board capping objectives.
Capping objectives, pinning, just being
Yeah.
annoying, screening.
Yeah.
You can get a lot of. I really like that as an option.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
I do find Reprisal is good at the moment because I'll generally take my big Bloodthirster as my general, and he's sometimes target number 1. So if you kill my general, which is my Bloodthirster, it then unlocks Reprisal for me, which can be pretty easy to do. You know, you kill my general, I'll just turn around and murder you with 20 Bloodletters.
I will say as well, like Surround and Destroy, just to go back for a second, the Claws of Karanak as well, getting the pre-game move. That is another, even if you don't want to do 2 units of Fury, that could be another way you have,
It all comes down to the points as well. You know, Claws of Karanak, that's 100. A unit of Furies is 8. You know, a unit of Furies is 80. You know, a unit of Furies that move faster. They just have a few more tools.
But you do get more wounds in I'm just pointing out another example.
Yeah, 100%.
Pros and cons.
Lead into the Maelstrom's very good. I find I'll be doing that at least once a game. You know, almost every game. I mean, because you can only do lead to Maelstrom once per game anyway. Half the time I run into the issue is I tend to kill whatever I charge, so it can sometimes be hard to set up. Bait and trap. Most of the time I have a hard time doing that because it rolls into, once again, I don't have to retreat because I've just murdered everything that I've gone into.
And just something to call out here on the behalf of Furies. Obviously, with Hatred of Sorcery, if you retreat, you lose the ward, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but the Furies don't get that. So you could retreat with the Furies, assuming they don't die. You know, tag a unit. You know, don't take much damage. Then they can retreat, and they haven't lost anything. And then you charge in with something and slap.
100%. You know, endless expropriation. I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Expropriation.
It can be done. You know, if you manage to like plink a wizard that's controlling an endless spell, or you know, controlling an incarnate, you can just plink them off. You know, very edge case. I've never done it. It's all just theory at the moment for me because it's never come up. But
I've never done it.
Most of the time, I do about 3 battle tactics off here, and then I generally am looking at 2 battle tactics from the book, which is kill 8 models and kill a wizard. So I'm generally looking at about that 3-to-2 ratio, 3 from the GHB, 2 from the battle time, which isn't half bad. I mean, mostly from the GHB side, I'm doing the movement phase ones, you know, Surround and Destroy, intimidate the invaders, and then either lead into the Maelstrom or Reprisal. And then from the book, I'm doing Trial of Skulls, or I'm doing Kill a Wizard, or I'm doing, you know, have everything within 8. You know, stuff like that.
Even like leave none standing, pick a friendly unit within 3 inches of a complete battle tactic if basically that unit's dead.
Fought, and, you know, and the unit that was in range of it's dead. So it can be good, you know, especially if I have a unit of Bloodletters like in combat with like, you know, 2 Flagellants. I'm like, I'll just do that. You know,
and then jokes on you, I'll do my 5-up rally in combat.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything? I think that's pretty neat. I think, you know, I'm
that's
getting
pretty much
a good idea. And like what's great as well is what you've shared is starting to shape these lists, right? Like, how am I scoring these battle tactics? What am I doing to build my grand strategy? What am I
Yeah.
doing for board control? And like, it's starting to kind of bring this all together, which then
Yeah.
leads us to two lists that you've put to me.
Mm.
So the first one, I'll read it out so you can have yourself a sip of drink, is the Bloodlords. Slaughter of Sorcery is the grand strat. You've got yourself two Slaughter Priests. One has Killer Instinct, Blood Sacrifice. The other one has Holy Unflames and Witchbane Curse. You have a Bloodthirster, Unfettered Fury, which is General Firebrand. How do I say the artifact? Athgar? Athgar?
Argath.
Argath, the King of Blades. I always think of like some dude selling me knives. Like, I'm gonna late night television show flogging me a bunch of steak knives.
Yeah.
Also has Bloodbind and the Bronze Flesh. Also got yourself a Blood Secretor with the Pouch of Moldust. You have 20 Blood Letters, 20 Blood Letters, 6 Blood Crushers, 5 Flesh Hounds, and don't leave home without them. Hex Gorgeous Skulls, wrapped up in a battle reg and a command entourage, where you've chosen prayer as your extra enhancement, which is why Blake has three different units with a second prayer.
So this was
how's
the
this
list I
work?
took to your event. So this is just verbatim the list I took to Sydney GT. Got me to a 4-1. Essentially, it was planning around, like I touched on before, the ability to leverage going first because of people taking Entorian Acolytes. In all my games, I believe I went first because everyone else was like, I'm 5, 6, 7 drops because I want maximum Entorian Acolytes. So the core of the list is turns 1. I'm giving Bronze Flesh to the Blood Crushers for +1 save. Then I'm hitting them with Killer Instinct from the Slaughter Priest to move them 8 inches up the table. Then they move another 8 inches in the movement phase. And then they're going a 3d6 charge with the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury. After that, after I've pinned as much as I can pin, the Blood Letters just march up the side and they just pincer and just kill whatever they touch. It's no like Skaven or Zinch where it's all these like, high level tech. It's very much just I'm walking forward and punching you in the face. It's a very like honest play style, aside from the hero phase tech and moving around. Got 4 unbinds for a no magic army. Having 4 unbinds is pretty high. 2 off the slaughter, 1 off each Slaughter Priest, 1 off each Fleshhound. Then the Hex Gorgeous Skulls, there to just, because of the magic metal. And then Argath shut off the wards. It's a stock standard. But yeah, other than that, this is just the Bloodlords list that I've found, great success with. Historically, I would have taken Scarbrand instead of the 6 Blood Crushers. But the 6 Blood Crushers are just proving their worth. And in the current meta of like Hoarfrost, Scarbrand can just get lifted with ease. He's just too squishy because he just target number 1. He can just get Hoarfrost off the table. Whereas the 6 Blood Crushers, their value's out there to the moon.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Like, if I can absorb Scarbrand's damage and debuff him, if I can just absorb enough, I know I can delete him in a counter attack.
Yeah.
With Blood Crushers, I do find that they will take me a little bit more work. 1, it's more wound density. 2, it's a bigger footprint. There's a lot of things in the favor of Blood Crushers.
And the coherency changes are the biggest thing for Blood Crushers. When GW changed the coherency from 1 to 5 to 1 to 6, I can just make an absolutely massive wall. I can't remember. I did the measurements when it came out, but it's like a ridiculous length that you can make that unit. And you can tag almost the whole arm, like an entire army with 1 unit. And then they're spending their entire first turn dealing with Blood Crushers.
I'm glad you raised that because I was going to ask you, because I haven't played them with the new coherency rule. So, folks, if you don't know the new coherency rule, one of the key changes is that it used to be units of 1 to 5, and then there was a rule that triggered with 6 or more. Now that number has gone to 6. So anything 7 and beyond now triggers the different version of coherency. And when I played the Blood Crushers in the past, being a unit of 6, you always really used to only get 3, maybe 4 models in combat. So you would lose. Yeah, you do mortals on the charge, but you never really got the value of 6 Blood Crushers.
Yeah, but now you can bring all 6 to bear, and they have the impact damage. Then they have their mortal wounds because they are bloodletters, so they do get the mortal wounds on 5s and 6s. So sometimes you can spike high enough on the impact damage, you just clear a screen, and then you go forward again, and then you start hitting the juicy innards of the army.
Yeah. And as you
But yeah,
mentioned, if you roll a 1, you bring them back right on battle shock.
yeah. If you still have a banner in the unit, you roll a 1. It's like cool, bang, there you go, another one
That's
back
not.
in.
Yeah, and then you rally the next turn if you're out of combat. And
Yeah, 100%.
so the flesh hounds are there to screen, get objectives, to
Mm.
get some unbinds in there. They're
Mm.
not like big damage dealers. Like they'll do a little bit of
Yeah,
damage.
they're not bad. They're good for cleaning the last few wounds off units. They are they're 4 attacks each, and they do have an 8+2 to their charge, so they can be good for running in and dealing with the last wound on like a hero or like a few straggling units from a unit of 10 that I might have cleaved down. So they're not
I think
bad.
I think what's really scary for me, Blake, is the fact that this is 164 wounds, which is similar to my Gits and my Gargant lists,
Yeah,
but you can summon.
yeah.
So
So
you can easily add an extra 20 to 40 wounds,
yeah,
through your summoning pool.
yeah, I don't know if you had a look at the lists for dice, but down the bottom I changed the wounds to wounds more than you expect because a lot of people don't expect. I was like, how many wounds are that? I'm like, oh, 40, and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, they're 2 wounds each now.
And 160 is a lot in the current meta. Like, lists will vary around 100 to 140 at
Yeah,
most. Like, even 140 in a lot of lists are a lot.
yeah, and that rolls into I'm going to lose a few bloodletters going across the table, but that's where the blood secretor comes in. Like once a game, he taps the ground, and I get 1+1 attack board wide. So even if I lose a few bloodletters crossing the table, I just tap the blood secretor's banner, and I'm back to like full swinging power, which is the main reason you bring it. Because a full unit of 20 is 41 attacks. If you manage to get the unit of 20 across the table at full strength, tap the blood secretor, that's 61 attacks. Threes, threes, mortals on 5s and 6s, ran 1, damage 1. It'll kill most things. Like it'll kill full health gargants. It'll knock down just about anything in the game.
Yeah, it's very brutal. And it kind of goes back to why sometimes the battle tactics where you got to be around or, survive can be challenging. So,
Yeah, because sometimes they're just overkill, which is the problem.
yeah, who would think overkilling is actually a problem?
Yeah, 100%.
If
But
you were
yeah,
going to tweak this list, let's say there's an emerging meta, I don't know what it is, like
mm,
Seraphon's Rising, or maybe Flesh Eater Courts is the new big bad soon, or
yeah,
whatever Dawnbringer's 3 Electric Boogaloo comes in.
yeah.
Is there anything that might be quote unquote fat that you would tweak if the meta shifted
Yeah.
in some way?
So it's going to sound kind of funny, but Hex Gorger Skulls, for me at the moment, are out. I found that they just weren't doing a whole lot for me. Like they were very, very conditional. Against it didn't work against every matchup. You go against like Fire Slayers, they're doing nothing. You go against an army that might have like 1 wizard. It's okay. I have 50 points to deal with 1 wizard. So for me, I'm looking at Wrathax more. It is 20 points more, but I found, especially at the dice event, it just floats around and just deals those last few wounds to those backboard wizards. Hit them with a brass skull, then you hit them with a wrath axe. You can just start to really. It adds up over the course of the game.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of lists lately taking both. They'll take Hex Gorges and the Wrathax, but Wrathax.
I'd love to
But
take both, but then you're sacrificing those chants.
I was just re-looking at the Bleeding Icon to see if there's a reason, because Bleeding Icon's the same points currently as Hex Gorgeous Skulls.
Yeah.
Is there a reason if you're not getting value from Hex Gorgeous? I think part of Hex Gorgeous as well is the psychological threat and damage that it does, right? Like that in itself plays. I don't want to miscast, especially again. I said spellcasting savant. There's certain things that I need, and with the primal magic dice, I've probably invested in my list to get wizardy stuff. I don't want to lose that, especially earlies, and I can't unbind it. I can't get rid of it.
Yeah, but yeah, with me, I think all of the judgments have their place. I just think with the whatchamacallit, the icon, it was better last GHB when Gits were at their reign. because I wanted to be able to shut off the ability for like big units of squigs auto pass. Like they didn't want to auto pass battle shock. More like the bounders. I wanted to stop them auto passing battle shock, or against trogs, like stopping auto pass battle shock is downright crippling to
Well,
trogs
especially when you add an extra D3 models fleeing and you
that run.
multi wound. Yeah,
Mm,
like if you don't have the triumph, um,
yeah,
because that's what saves me in having the basically the inspiring presence
yeah,
triumph. That's what saves me for squigs. But
mm,
making D3 or extra D6 trolls flee is
yeah,
brutal. This is
massive.
like this is like your Geminids, but
Yeah,
obviously different.
yeah, 100%. It's just all about the meta at the moment. And I think the meta at the moment, because it's all small wizards, I want to take either Hex Gorges or Wrathax. Hex Gorges to scare them, and Wrathax to just plink those last wounds off. Because that is the one thing that Khorne does lack outside of Skull Cannons, is the ability to project long range damage.
And I think the Wrathax ties into Slaughter of Sorcery too. So
Yeah.
you're trying to get to those. If I kind of retreat my wizard and trying to hide from you to get
Mm.
me, then the only way you can really, because you don't really have a lot of shooting and you don't have a skull cannon in this situation,
Yeah.
then the Wrathax might be the way to get to that.
And because it's a judgment, the only way to get rid of it is for either me to roll the big 6, and that causes D6 mortal wounds, which you don't want, or have a priest in your list, which not a lot of armies have. So it's just floating around. And if it's against a full wizard army, it's there. Like you can't deal with it. It's just a threat that is just going to be there.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it a lot. And
But
obviously, you've gone 4-1. You've had a lot of practice with this, and
yeah,
some people might think there might be too many priests in here. Which cool. Go add yourself a unit of blood reavers. For, get yourself an extra blood tie. Get the
yeah,
furies in. You can tweak
but yeah.
and adjust accordingly.
Touching on the Furies, that is one thing that I'm definitely looking at because I do have a retweaked version of this list, which does have the 2 units of Furies for that turn 1 battle tactic. Because across the whole weekend, I did find getting that turn 1 battle tactic was very hard. I either had to drop it, like not get one, or I had to put myself in such an awkward position to get a battle tactic that it sacrificed my board positioning.
Well, and before we go to the second list, what would you drop if you were going to go to a tournament and put 2 units of Furies in here? Because 2 units of Furies is more than just like a Slaughter Priest. How would you do it?
So it's 160. So
yeah.
I'd look at the 2 Flesh Hounds would go, and I'd replace them with I take 1 unit of Flesh Hounds, and I can't remember what I've done. I've dropped the Blood Secretor. I've just completely dropped him totally because I found while he was good, the extra attack never really came into it, especially in the current meta. Like old GHB, when it was like big hordes, I was like, okay, that extra attack is very good. But now big hordes are gone. I don't need the extra attack. So I'm like, okay, I'll drop him, drop a unit of Flesh Hounds, take my 2 units of Furies, take my Wrathax, gives me access to a turn 1 battle tactic, and I can start putting the damage out long range early. Because if you summon Wrathax from Skull Altar, instead of being set up within 8, you set up within 16, you double it.
Yeah.
And then it moves another 8. So that's a 24-inch threat range, turn 1 off the Wrathax. So sometimes if someone misdeploys a little hero, I'll just get Wrathax onto it and hit it for D3 plus D3, or if I'm lucky, D3 plus D6. And sometimes that can just pop a hero straight away.
Yeah, go hunt that Merciless Blizzard or Hoarfrost or whatever they've built around.
100%.
I like it. I like it a lot. And those blood letters doing mortals on 5s, not 6s, is absolutely terrifying. Being on the receiving end of 20 blood letters they're just brutal. They're just brutal.
Yeah.
The second list is a flayed list, so getting the 5-up ward after they've been picked to fight. Again, Slaughter of Sorcery. The Triumph is inspired. You have a blood letter of Unfettered Fury. Literally the same loadout there. Firebrand, General, King of Blades, Selamir, a Butcher's Steak Knife, Bloodbind, and Unholy Flames. It looks like it's a very similar Slaughter Priest build as well.
Very similar, yeah.
Although, didn't the Bloodthirster have the bronze flesh before?
Yeah. So I've switched it up. I've retooled because when I'm building the list, I sort of think about which order I'm going to do my prayers and who's going to be where. So that's one thing that I definitely have clued on myself, because it was always my biggest mistake, is I just willy-nilly give out prayers and then not think about who has what and the best
Right.
order to do it.
The sequence important. Before we get into the rest of that, Slaughter Priest, Killer Instinct, Blood Sacrifice, Slaughter Priest, Bronze Flesh, and Killer Instinct. You got Blood Stoker, Blood Secretor. Blood Secretor has the Polished Nullstone Pebble,
Yep.
10 Blood Reavers, 2 units of 8 Claws of Karanak, a unit of 10 Skull Reapers, 6 Mighty Skull Crushers, 5 Wrathmongers. Nice to see them back. They were a staple in second edition, seem to drop off a little bit.
Yeah, the
But
cheerleaders.
I am starting to see them come back. Those tournaments I mentioned earlier as well. Started to see, I think Matthias was running Wrathmongers. Anyway, good to see them back. Wizard Fighters of Antor, Warlord for the Prayer, 1980. Not as many wounds, 140, but it is 11 drops as opposed to 4.
Yeah, so full disclosure, as I mentioned to you, I am a Demons player. So I'm sort of sometimes a little bit out of my depth with the mortal side, but I still do know how it operates. So when I was sort of building this list, I was keeping to the philosophy of the pin and win, and that's where the 6 Mighty Skull Crushers come in. Cross the table, pin, and they're more durable than the Blood Crushers as well, because they have a 5-up ward against magic. So while they don't have the 5-up ward that demons have, they just have the 5-up ward against magic, which in the current meta is fantastic. Like, you hit him with a Merciless Blizzard, it's like, I have a 5-up Soul Shrug, then I have a 5-up ward against any damage that you do to me with it. So they can just be really painful. The 10 Skull Reapers fill the same role as a unit of Bloodletters. They just get followed up by the Wrathmongers with a +1 attack, so they can be brutal. The Blood Secretor is there for the rally, because even though it is capped, still bringing back 3 Skull Reapers can be big. And then 2 units of Claws of Karanak, there for screens and that turn 1 battle tactic with the pre-game move. Blood Reavers are just, 80-point Blood Reavers, going to get me a screen and then die. We all know what the Bloodthirster does, 3d6 charge. And then the 2 Slaughter Priests, I've went with 2 sources of Killer Instinct as a bit of a redundancy. So that way, even if one does end up getting plinked, I do then still have access to another source of Killer Instinct, or even positioning-wise. I'm not going to be out of position if I ever do need it.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of having critical spells or prayers on multiple units. Like, yeah, you can't do double Killer Instinct, but losing one source of it means that you've still got access to it somewhere else. So I'm always a big fan of that.
Yes. So then the Polished Nullstone Pebble on the Blood Secretor. So if touching back on that, if he's within 3 inches and if he gets hit with a spell and is within 3 inches of another friendly unit, the spell has to go onto that friendly unit. But if there's no one within 3, the effects are just outright ignored, if I remember correctly. So I've given that to him because I want him marching up the board to be in range of the Skull Reapers for that rally. Because I want to give that for the rally. So I was like, cool, I'll take that. So that way, even if someone does target him with the Merciless, I'm just like, cool, he just ignores it. I have a 5-up Spell Shrug, and beyond that, even if I fail the Spell Shrug, I still have Polished Nullstone Pebble after that. Just layers on layers of magic defense. And then, So, I haven't tested this list. It was more just throw together. I was like, this theory of it, I like the idea of it. Especially the 6 Mighty Skull Crushers, you get them down to a lot.
What's the Wrathmongers bringing to the party?
They're there for their +1 attack bubble, because they if you're wholly within 8 inches of a Wrathmonger, you get +1 attack. So they're just going to be hugging the ass of that Skull Reaper unit, or they're going to be hugging the ass of that Mighty Skull Crushers. Probably not, because the Mighty Skull Crusher is going to be yeeted across the table. But they're just there to get those Skull Reapers up to ridiculous attacks. And then once you couple in the Blood Secretors once per game extra attack, you can have those Skull Reapers to be +2 attacks each.
With the combination of the Blood Secretor and the Wrathmongers.
And then I've also thrown them into Wizard Fighters of Antor for if on the odd chance I go against a Lumineth who's got a unit of Blade Lords. No, because they're not wizards. Wardens, that's the ones. Unit of Wardens or a unit of Sentinels or unit of whatever the Stormcast wizards are, because
The like evocators and sequitors.
Yeah, whatever the wizards are that are on the cats. I can't remember
Oh,
what those are called.
evocators on kitty
Yeah,
cats.
because I have started
Evocators on
seeing
Dracolines.
a few of them pop up in Stormcast lists. So Wizard Finders can also play into that.
Yeah, not bad.
'Cause-
Yeah. A few Stormcast players. I mean, they are pretty low win percentage these days. The old Stormcast, but you are seeing people move away from Dracothian Guard type, Fulminators, and
Hmm.
going into Evocators on Dracolines.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm still need to find this rule, but you've referred to it a few times. I do need to double sense check. If we're wrong, folks, don't at me about this and have a whinge about the Lumineth and that one model. I need to check.
Oh, the targeting them with Wizard Finders.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
need to.
I believe that was covered in the GHB FAQ.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now.
Yeah.
Not that I don't trust you, but I
If
just
I
know
remember
people.
correctly, it should be on the first page, right hand side.
Well, smarty pants.
Look at
Keep
it.
going. Anything else I need to know about this particular list?
So yeah, when I was building this list, I was tempted to put a unit of 20 Blood Warriors in to act as an anvil because when they die, they do get to do 2 murder rolls instead of just 1. So I was like, if I take a unit of 20 of them, they could be the anvil. But then I opted to go for the Mighty Skull Crushers for the speed and the wound density. 30 wounds on a 2-up save is so much to deal with. And because they can also benefit from the 4-up rally, even and they are 5 wounds each, I could bring back 2 Mighty Skull Crushers with a rally if I ever get in the position for that to happen.
Look for this Wizard Fighters Aventor thing.
Should
It'd be a magenta, right?
Oh, there we go. Down there, right?
Literally, my mouse is there.
Right there.
Can a unit that contains one or more model that are wizards, for example, Lumineth Well Lords Venari, Sentinels, be included in the Wizard Fighter? No, not that one, because you can't include that into the Wizard
Can it? The one below it. The question just below it.
If I use
up,
an ability,
up one. That one there, the big brick of text.
that one.
Sorry, that one there. Yeah.
If a unit that contains one or more models that is wizards, for example, blah blah blah, it's picked by the target of an attack made by an enemy unit in the Wizard Finds Event or Battalion. Yes, as long as the conditions that make the model a wizard are satisfied. For example, the Venari Sentinel unit has 5 or more models. Cool. I wanted to triple check the tapes on that one because
we actually had that question come up at Bathurst because this fact came out after Bathurst, and we had this exact question was like, can I attack into wardens and get my +1 attack? And we aired on the side of yes, because you do meet the requirements.
Yeah, I remember it being up for debate. I didn't recall it being actually decided, and because again, we're not seeing a lot of Lumineth these days. Like it's just, oh man. Anything else about this list? I mean, it's interesting. It sounds like definitely you've got a lot more experience and you're loving the demons more. But again, like you can bring in mortals, you can do a soup, and
yeah. So back onto that, the sub faction in particular for the mortal list that I chose, the Flayed. So Skull Reapers are battle line in Skullfiend Tribe, but I chose the Flayed because since they're my big damage dealer, I want them to get a 5-up ward after they swing. Just in case they don't manage to wipe out their target, I want them to be as tanky as possible. So that's the whole reason I went for that, yeah.
Yeah, cool. No, I was just reading the conditions of the ward, like how long the ward stays. And
I believe it's just till the end of the combat phase.
That's what I was looking at. And yeah, it's just until the end of the same phase. Once the phase is dropped.
It also works very well on the Mighty Skull Crushers because because they're just there to pin. If they tag something, let's say they go in, they wipe out a screen, but then they're just tagging like a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon right at the edge. They're fought. They now have a 5-up ward against the combat that's coming at them. Then outside of that, they have the 5-up ward against magic. So you can quickly layer the defensive buffs on those Mighty Skull Crushers to the point that they just become ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we were saying earlier. Like they're just so hard to lift, which is why I would much rather play Scarbrand versus against the Skull Crushers because they are tough to lift.
And then the bonus is, even though I've only got the 1 unit of Skull Reapers, I can just get to 5-8 blood tithe, bring a unit of bloodletters onto the table if I find that I don't have enough threats. That's just the bonus of chaos in general. If I find I don't have enough threats, I can just summon onto the table, bring more threats to the table, more screens. If I summon a Bloodmaster, that's a priest, I can just bring more prayers to the table, which is
Yeah. Got a couple burning questions for you. And these are coming from Discord. Actually, Dutchy asked a fair few of these, so shout out Dutchy for some cracking questions. Threefold. First one is, how are you adjusting to this General's Handbook and battle tactics, especially in the early turns? And how are you curating your list? So you've talked a lot about Furies and pre-game movements and being able to get some of those. And how are you, and I think the part that I really want to hear from you is, how are you evaluating units that can accomplish battle tactics easy?
So for me, it all comes down to, if I don't have to interact with the opponent to get my battle tactic, I want to go down that route. That's why I chose for the Furies for Surround and Destroy. I don't have to interact with the opponent stopping my spell. I don't have to, interact with using my primal dice, which I don't want to use on a turn 1 battle tactic for a spell. I want to use that for my unbinds. I want to use that to stop your spells. So yeah, in terms of adjusting to the earlier turns, I'm looking for stuff that can bring movement value. Furies can move quick, or stuff like before we had Claws of Karanak, I would have been looking at the Untamed Beasts, because they have a pre-game move. But now that we've got our own, homegrown pre-game move, I'm looking at that. So yeah, that's probably how I'm adjusting to the battle tactics.
Second question is, what are some of the techniques in navigating the meta? So we've already alluded to Seraphon, Ossiarch Bone Reapers, Soulblight, just to name a few. In fact, at tournament representation, if you look at what's traditionally on the top tables at the moment, they are some of the ones. Obviously, really good players aside, they can do whatever they want. But
100%.
So, for instance, if you have a meta which leans towards a particular faction or a play style, I guess my point is, how do you maybe counter some of the top lists at the moment, or the top factions at the moment? So let's go with Seraphon, Gits, Ossiarch Bone Reapers, Seraphon, I haven't said already, Soulblight Grave Lords.
Yeah, even Shark IDK, I'd start to consider that the top.
It's not hitting peak yet. Some of it's coming in, but it's definitely not popular yet.
100%. I think it just all comes down to, against a lot of the top meta stuff, I've got the tools already in the toolbox regardless. If I'm playing against OBR, they have magic, I have unbinds. They have wards, I can shut the wards off. Same goes for Soulblight. Same goes for Seraphon and Tzeentch, though. Seraphon, I find they can tech into just buffing themselves, so they don't attack me. So that's where I find, if I'm going into Seraphon, if they're attacking me with spells, happy days. If they're buffing themselves, I'm starting to sweat a bit.
Except obviously Croak and his mortal wound raining of pain.
Yeah. Guys, and then against Tzeentch, I'm not worried at all, because a lot of their stuff, they need to hit you with the spells. So I'm just half the time I just show up with my list and I've got the tools ready to rock and roll. It all comes down to removing key pieces. If Gits start to become prevalent again, specifically the Army of Renown with the Trogoth King, I'm going to be taking the Icon, because I want to be able to shut your wards. I want to be able to shut your ability to auto pass Battle Shock, and I will take Argath, King of Blades. No ward, no auto pass Battle Shock, and that's how I tech into that, for example, against that particular Army of Renown. But yeah, against Seraphon, I went into Sydney GT never playing it, so I was I'll work it out as I go, and I quickly found that the way to do it was just let them hit you with the spells. Let them hit you, bank on getting that 5 up, because it's a 1 in 3. Get it down to a 4 up, it becomes a 50-50 shot. Soulblight, I've had the pleasure of not having to play them yet, but I'd go into them with the same mindset of, okay, ask them what their key spells are, bank my unbinds on those key spells, use the ability to pull stuff into bad positions, all that jazz. What was the other one we're talking about?
OBR. I mean, like they've had a few adjustments, but they're still pretty powerful.
Yeah, OBR once again. I seem to be able to dodge death like a champion. I even dodged my own death army. I haven't touched it in 6 months. They're relying on those wards and those buffing auras, and I have the ability to pull stuff out of range of those buffs. Like back before the Gothazar Harvester got taken out to the back shed, so to speak. I already had a contingency plan of like, okay, I'll use my Bloodthirster. I'll just pull that unit of Mortek out of range of the Gothazar Harvester. That way, you can't bring stuff back with the Gothazar. Surgically start to pick the army apart.
And they've probably shifted a little bit from like Crematorians or Petrifex, and they're moving towards Null Myriad, which plays perfectly in your hand.
Yeah,
given that Null Myriad is all about spell unbinding and like spell shrugging at 2-ups. Cool. You can 2-up nothing because I ain't got spells for you.
I was like, fantastic. Go for gold, champ.
Yeah.
And then Khorne mirror match as well. Like that can be an absolute, that's like 4D chess. That was I can't remember his name. But he'll know who I'm talking about. I played him game 1 at Sydney GT. It was Demons versus Mortals. And it was an absolute slogfest because it was just the unbreakable anvil of the mortals and then just the unstoppable killing of the demons. And it just came down to, like I said, those blood crushers just pinned the whole army in the corner. And the funny part was Valkyr has an aura of you can't fall back. And his own Valkyr prevented his whole army from falling back from my blood crushers. And I was like, oh, tough break. And it affects Khorne bloodbound, so not just friendly. Because I'm all demons, it didn't affect me one bit.
Oh, that's brutal. Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, obviously, everyone's local meta, and like, I don't play. I play a lot of Gits, but I don't play Trogs, right? So even that, bringing that to the table, look, I think in most cases, Khorne has the tools, and it's why they're doing consistently well in the meta because regardless of who's on top, you have good tools to handle. Is there anyone that you're like concerned about, or if the meta was to shift to, let's say, more shooting or some type of other style? And you mentioned obviously hordes and things like that. Is there areas that might be a bit harder for you to handle?
For me, it was like when I played Chris Welfare's IDK with the Sharks. That was it was a combination of the battle plan and that list. It was very hard because he can stay out of range of my ability to get to him. And he can just, with the shooting, he can just pick off what he needs. Very fast armies that can just outposition me is where the weaknesses come in for Khorne, I think. Because even though we've got those hero phase moves, those, 3d6 charges, they do have their limits. And if something can move fast enough to just outposition you, get behind and start picking off those buff characters, I'm in trouble.
Speaking of speed, then the other army that I did not mention, and apologies to the Dark Prince, would be Slaanesh. Given Slaanesh has a lot of speed, a lot of shooting.
Yeah. So I've only played Slaanesh once so far, and that was against our boy Terrence Voller at Sydney Slaughter. And what we found was it was just a matter of my wound density didn't play very well into his bliss buffs, as well as the 5-up ward. Like he found that he was having to overcommit resources. And it all came down to, if you touch Slaanesh first, they're gone. But if Slaanesh can just outshoot me, they win. So I'll be on that. I haven't got much experience into Slaanesh. Like I'm probably going to have to hit like Liam up for a game and just get a bit more practice into them.
I guess it's where Murderlust, for example, comes into play, because if you can shut down the Unleash Hell, which is really where like Pretenders wants to do the triple Unleash Hell, the triple all-out attack, then 100%. All of a sudden you are mitigating a lot of where their damage is coming from. And not a lot of armies can shut down Unleash Hell because of things like Murderlust.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but I don't have too much experience into Slaanesh, so I can't comment too much about how it would go into them. I think that it also comes off, between Khorne and Slaanesh, because they dropped at the same time. It very much seems like Khorne has become the army of choice out of the duo from that release. You see a lot more Khorne than Slaanesh.
There is a lot of Slanesh, but I think building like 66 Blitzbarb archers is something that most people just don't want to do. So
Yeah, it does require some personal sacrifices to build that many. And I think it
yeah,
just comes down to the meta as well. Is like it's the magic meta. You're just naturally gonna see more Zinch, more Seraphon. Just people want to play with their wizards.
yeah, 100%. And you know what? Now that we're here for 12 months, that might. It's not like the 6 month season where everyone just wanted to make the most of it.
Yeah.
Now it's like I'm here for the long game. You might find Blizzard might drop off. You might
Mm.
find that it's not a great spell for them, and they're investing too much where they could get something double Hoarfrost or another spell lore or whatever.
Yeah. 100%.
Two final questions, and then we'll kind of bring it home. What are some of the key areas for you what are some of the key areas you see for new Blades of Khorne players like slacking in? So are there areas that you would suggest new players focus on? For example, the understanding of when or how to use blood tie points, or when to summon units overspending blood tie, or you answer the question.
Yeah. So because I'm a professional goober myself, I had to look back and see how I could improve. A biggest part is, like you said, the blood type, knowing when to use it, how to use it. You know, knowing when to use, a murder lust, knowing when to use a brass skull, knowing like should I summon, should I use this, And the biggest thing for Corn is it teaches you how to use the movement phase because you're going to be thinking 2 turns ahead. So I think, I don't want to comment too much because I don't like to consider myself, the professional. It all comes down to just get your positioning on the table down pat. That's the biggest thing because early on, I always found myself putting myself in bad spots because I didn't think 2 or 3 turns in advance. I just thought about the current turn. Then when I get to the next turn, and I'd be like, oh, shit, I should have gone that way. I didn't think about that particular thing. I was like, oh, now I'm out of range of my buffs because I didn't think about that. So you just got to look at the movement phase. And then the blood tide's the biggest one. Know when to use it and how to use it. Don't think, oh, I got 8 blood tithe, then just immediately going to blow it all on summoning 20 bloodletters and then realize that 20 bloodletters brings you nothing. If it turns out that, spending 2 of them to auto stop a spell gets you a battle tactic, go for it. It's all about getting the points at the end of the day.
To go back to a second, you mentioned planning a turn or two ahead. What are some examples how you can plan ahead? Like if I was someone who really just plays for the now, and
Yeah.
I know some players really struggle for like priority roll and losing the double because they're not thinking ahead. So
Yeah.
like give me some examples of how I could get better at thinking ahead.
For me, it like especially with my list, like the pin. It's like, okay, you're going to pin the enemy on turn 1. How are you going to capitalize on that in turns 2 and turns 3? Like, where's your army going to be in those later turns to capitalize on that pin? Like, you don't want to go pinning something and then not be in a position to capitalize on the enemy being held up, you know? So think, all right, I need my bloodletters to be here. How am I going to get them there and mitigate the something holding them up? So then it comes down to layering your screens in front of them, using murder lust to corner tag a unit that may have threatened your bloodletters. Think about the end game. Like, how am I going to get my grand strategy? If they've got 2 wizards or 3 wizards, think about what's the best course of action over these 5 turns that I'm going to get to those wizards. Am I going to rely on, 3 blood tie at the turn on brass skull, or am I going to get my Wrath Axe out and chip them away, or do I just send my bloodthirster out on a hunting mission? Don't just think 1 turn at a time. Like think 5 turns ahead of how will I do this, and just start to visualize on the table. Like I know for some people it's not as easy because I'm a very visual person. Like I like to look at the board and I can sort of visualize where things will go, how things will play out. If you can just practice that, you can be a long way to getting better. Because I found when I first started, I wasn't thinking about turns 3, 4, and 5. I was thinking about just playing turn by turn. And as soon as I started thinking about how will I get this, how will I do that, then my list started to evolve and reflect the ability to score those battle tactics, score that grand strategy, then my summoning box started to fill up because I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to use these. I know I'm going to take these. But yeah, you just got to think about moving the future, essentially, of the game.
No, I'll give you another practical example that I think about a lot is rally. So I'm in combat and I want to be able to rally, and it's like, well, clearly I can't in most situations. So if I position the charge correctly, or if I knew I'm going to absorb damage, if I think about removing models to be outside of 3, if I know I'm going to get hit and get hit hard, I can remove enough models out of combat so that when it goes to the next hero phase, regardless if I win the prio or not, I can rally. That's
100%.
thinking just one step ahead, just with the way I remove. Or if I know that I want to stop Blake from getting into combat or getting onto an objective, I'd remove from the back to stop his movement, as opposed to if I remove that 3, he can then go charge and move and be free.
Yeah. Khorne, it rewards mastery of the movement phase, I found. If you can master the movement phase, master those hero phase moves, there's a lot of cheeky ways you can position models to get the most out of them. You master that, it opens up the whole game, because at the end of the day, the movement phase is the only phase you control 100%. Like, outside of running, there's no dice involved, there's no randomness. You control it. Like, you get that down pat, and then all of a sudden, the randomness of the dice in combat, that's all you're worrying about.
I've been saying for years, this game is a movement game. It's not a shooting game. It's not a combat game.
Yeah.
It's not about who can kill the fastest. It is about movement. So
and then and the biggest thing is Khorne, you will lose a fair bit of your model, like units, because that's just how it's designed. But the biggest thing is you just got to play to your outs. Like, I remember when I first got into AOS, and I was playing a lot of games with Joel Graham. He was basically helped me get to where I am, and he was like, play to your outs. You're going to lose a lot of models, but that's just how the army works. Play to your outs. Like, you might be down to like 3 units left, but summon. Like, think about how you're going to get these battle tactics. Because the game isn't over until you hit round 5. There's been plenty of games where I'm down to like 3 units, and I've managed to pull a win out because I've just looked at the board and realized, all right, this can go here, this can go here, and I can do this turn, then next turn I can do this, and that's essentially how you win.
And even if I see a lot of people give up, especially when the tides of battle around round 3, are not going their way, or maybe they've suffered massive casualties, they almost like mentally give up. And you know what?
Yeah.
Even if you actually have lost the game, you've got nothing to lose. You might as well just go for broke and try for the last couple of battle tactics, or to try to stop denying your opponent from scoring their last battle tactic or 2. Play to the full 5.
Because I'm no saint. Like, I can definitely like death spiral sometimes if it looks like a losing battle. Like, but you just got to snap yourself out of it. Like, for me especially, like Sydney Slaughter's scoring, because it was all battle points, you could lose the game but still retain a pretty good standing. So you were rewarded for playing the best possible game. Even if you're going to lose, you were rewarded for your ability to just go hard and get as many points, as many battle tactics.
Well, my GT was denial. Like, I gave you points for denying your opponent. So even if you can't score anymore, how do I stop my opponent from scoring 5 out of 5? So that in itself is a little game.
Yeah, you can go from the mindset of like, okay, I want to win this, to like, okay, you're going to win, but I'm going to make it the most painful win you're going to have all weekend.
Love it. Love it. Any final comments that you haven't shared, or things that you'd want to tell a Khorne player before I ask my final question, and then you can kind of say hello to the people of the internet and shout out your people?
If you're a starting Khorne player, just
or even just things in general.
Just have fun with it. Even just AOS in general. Like, at the end of the day, it's just war dollies. Win, lose, it doesn't matter, And for me, especially with my particular Khorne army, is like, I'm just lucky that the models I like are the meta at the moment. And I feel like that's the best way to play the game, is go with the models you like, because they will become meta one day and you'll have way more fun playing them. Like I played with the Khorne models I liked back when their old book, when it was, terrible. Had a great time. And now that my book is great, I'm having an even better time, because it's just all about using the models that you like.
Well, I mentioned my flagellants, for example, right? Jokes on everyone. I've owned over 100 flagellants since like 2015. Like I've owned these since fantasy days, and finally, like it's come up. Everything's come up Millhouse for me.
I've owned my 50 bloodletters since I got to AOS in like 2-3 years ago, and now it's just like they're good, and I'm just like, that was an investment.
You're ready. Yeah, I mean, like, stomps go up, stomps go down. Blake, final question. Go. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, and in regards to playing at events, is the biggest thing it helps me as well is don't go in there just looking for wins. Go in there with like, a goal of like, I want to score more battle tactics each game, or I want to get my grand strategy each game, or I just want to score more points, and those will translate into wins naturally. Like go into each game trying to focus on one specific skill. Like I want to focus on movement this game, or I want to focus on pre-planning my battle tactics this game. And that will translate into wins instead of just going, I want to win, because then you can sort of get into like a negative mindset of you might go 3-2 and that's respectable, but then you're going to hit yourself as like, I wanted the 4-1 or I wanted the 5-0, but you don't look back like, okay, those 2 losses were respectable losses. Because I still did what I set out to do, which was get better at movement, get better at battle tactics, get better at positioning.
But I was saying this actually someone the other day, like we were talking about some tournament prep, and I said, if you go in with this fixed mindset of I need to go 3-2 or 4-1, what happens if you lose your first 2 games? Like what type of mindset are you in game 3?
It just puts an immense amount of mental pressure on yourself.
Exactly. And like, compete with yourself. Think about like, how do I score my grand strategy every time? How do I get my 5 out of 5? Obviously you want to win, but like you got to keep that in check, because you can it can spiral 100%. And negatively impact you.
But yeah, that's pretty much would be my closing statement.
Love it. My final question, coming from Torrell himself. I couldn't not ask this question. What is your favorite flavored popped corn?
Oh, that's a good one. I am a fiend for like salted caramel.
Salted caramel?
Salted caramel popcorn. I'm telling you, it's the way to go.
All right. I'm more of a classic kind of like salt or butter. Keep it simple.
Milk for the cornflakes.
You're tragic.
Yeah, that's one thing I will say for new corn players is just get ready for the sheer amount of like corn puns. Like there are so many.
Yeah. And hey, my favorite band is Khorne, so you get to get.
It's ironic. Like I love Khorne, but I don't like the band Khorne myself. Like I respect it, but it's not my favorite.
I hate you. The end of this month, actually, Adidas is doing a collab with Khorne, so I get to I'm going to buy the Khorne jacket. I'm going to buy Khorne shoes. Nice. So I might have to do another Khorne show just to wear the Khorne attire. Not because anything actually happened with Khorne, just because I get to show off with my Khorne clothes.
Yeah, 100%. If a Valkyrie model comes out at the same time, you'll be laughing.
Are you ready? All right. Any shout outs, any people you want to say hello to? And if people want to talk to you, are you on Discord? Are you on Twitter? Like where can they chat Khorne with you?
So yeah, I'm on the sinking ship that is X Twitter at Travis, which I'm pretty sure I'll just comment on this video. Active on the Discord, on the New South Wales one, as well as the big AOS one. Shout out to my teammates at Crutchammer, like Jared, Cano, Lorso, Luke, Alex, Josh. Fantastic guys. Go away to all the events with them. Play them all the time. They're just great sparring and opponents for practicing lists, and then just narrative casual lists. And a special shout out to Josh Griffiths. He's like always chatting with him, and he's the one who really got me into AOS, specifically like fantasy sides of everything. Always talking to him, worked with him for a little bit, and it was just all day at work, bouncing ideas off each other, and it was fantastic. So yeah, special shout out to Josh, and he's also working on a City's Army as well, same as you, like big on the flagellants, old school fantasy players. He's living the dream.
That's all I can ask for. I'll be kit bashing my war altar with my Pontifex, and I'm going to have the best time.
Yeah.
But Blake, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much. No, my pleasure is all mine. Chat, I hope you people listening, more than chatters, like viewers, enjoyers of Khorne. I hope you enjoyed and found some value in this addition to the many other Khorne videos we've talked about. Obviously, GHB23 lens, thinking about Antorian locuses, the primal magic dice, thinking about how we can score some of these harder battle tactics. If you have some additional thoughts, please leave them in the comment section. I'm always curious to hear. Maybe you are an advocate of the war altar from the war shrine. Sorry, I always call it a war altar. The shrine from the Slaves to Darkness. Maybe you like some of the other shenanigans, or maybe there's something that's really working for you. Let us know in the comment section. Thank you all to the patrons. Thank you for supporting the channel. And if you've gotten this far and you haven't liked or subscribed, much appreciated. Please click the button. We've got plenty of great content like this coming out all the time.
Yeah, and if I can, before we go, there is the Crutchammer Facebook page. If we're trying to grow that, it's just us Crutchammer boys posting up. You know, if you want to get on that and just see a bunch of like Western, you know, Central West boys rolling dice and sinking beers, you know, if that's the content you like, then give us a like.
I'm sure all of the Americans and the Europeans would love to see it. And maybe I should clarify at this point, when we say Crutchammer, we're not talking about the Netherlands of like the anatomy. We're talking about like the actual, like a crutch that you might use, because just like some people are like, oh, join my Facebook page and see all the crutches. I'm like, yeah, no, thank you.
That all started from you know, I always took my Scar brand. Jared always took his Marathi, and you know, Lawso always took his Avlanor. So we're always playing our crutches. Let's just become Crutchammer
with their crutches, not with the crutch. All right, we're going into weird territory.
No worries.
Blake, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and go see Blake and his mates' crutches on. We'll put a link down below. All right.
No, thank you very much.
See you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. Now, if you did, I would love it if you pressed like on the video, as well as left me a comment with your thoughts. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the episode description. I also want to give a massive shout out to the AOS Coach patrons and YouTube members who are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you are all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a 1-1 on a spellcast.